Welcome to the 26th episode of the Triple Takeover Toycast, a fortnightly podcast about vintage toy lines and in particular our favourite robots in disguise, the Transformers. Today is a bit of an extravaganza because it happens to be our 1-year anniversary episode, meaning that there's now enough recorded material of us chatting about toys for you to sit down and listen to uninterrupted for a gargantuan 48-hour binge session, or what M.A.S.K calls his ideal weekend. Of course, there's even more if you sign up on Patreon, meaning that you could easily get up to 3 days straight of material, although at least 5 hours of that is us just banging on about cardboard.
And 4 hours of that is Sixo.
That's true, actually. I do pay reference to that in a minute. I won't deny it. Needless to say, it's been an incredibly enjoyable first year, full of genuine highs and a rather unhealthy amount of self-enablement along the way. Although, is that just me? I don't know.
No, it isn't.
Yeah. It isn't.
I think this episode is clear evidence that that's
it's
not
everyone,
sincere.
right. This is probably the ultimate testament of it. Naturally, that's all down to the two best co-hosts a fellow like me could wish for. Now, it's true. It's true. Now, you chaps don't know this, but as it's an anniversary episode, you've actually both been nominated for a few awards. It's very exciting. So, M.A.S., first up, we have the wonderful M.A.S. from TransformersSquareone. And M.A.S., you may be delighted to hear that you've won the Most Soothing Voice Award.
I'll take it.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought that was well-deserved.
Did you not listen to the Controversial Opinions episode? He was not soothing in there.
I might have known you'd have something to say about that one, but
Was it not quite as good as across everything we were trying to say?
Well, on that theme, Maz, you've also won the Most Likely to Interrupt award.
Yes,
so
that's me.
Swings and roundabouts, mate, isn't it? What can I say?
The Mazdozer.
Right, exactly. We all love a bit of Mazdozer. Well, we have to, really, don't we? Because it's a thing. Additionally, you're up for Most Likely to Talk About Nappies, which you've already done in the preamble before we hit record there. So that's I felt a bit vindicated with that one. And the Hardest Working Washing Machine Award. So there you go.
It's off. All right, it's off.
Is it? Good.
Yeah.
Excellent.
I switched it off 10 minutes ago.
We're on to a good night tonight then. Your final honour is the real treat, though, as you've been recognised for your services to eliminating Omnibot chatter. So well done and bravo.
Oh, I failed, didn't I?
Well, we had to stick it on an exclusive mini-sode in the end.
There was Omnibot chatter. I think actually, no, that was a behind the paywall too. The other one, yeah.
It's all behind the paywall. Honestly, anybody listening to this not behind the paywall is going to think it's a myth.
It won't be in. It'll be redacted.
Right, exactly. It's just like a long beep. That's all it is. Yeah. Then we come to the one and only Liam from Toybox Soapbox. And Liam, I'm sure you'll be delighted to have been crowned cheekiest northern chappie this year. Then I can see that you've decisively claimed the least likely to buy an RID landfill award. So that's a little bit topical for tonight.
I feel like this is going to be the episode where it happens, isn't it? I mean, you've only sent me, 15,000 links? So,
It actually says here that you won it on a landslide for the sheer volume of reasonably priced landfills you've ignored in the last 12 months. So there you go.
$22. $22.
I know.
Boxed.
That sounds like a mouthful, that Sixo, what you just said there.
It is a little bit, let me tell you. But yes, some incredible landfills that have come and gone.
I'd like to thank everybody who voted for that, or the many Sixos.
Yeah, indeed, there were many of us. Then you've been awarded one of the biggest honours of all, as you actually get the Best Dressed nod for your commitment to wearing themed outfits on both Halloween and Christmas.
And changing costume during episodes.
I know, exactly.
Hey, I like to put on a good show.
Exactly. However, you do also get the Doesn't Realise That Podcasting is a Visual Medium award for wearing themed outfits on both Halloween and Christmas. So your final nomination is the Do We Do Stationery prize for obvious reasons.
He's not stopped mentioning it ever since he realised we do stationery, has he?
I know, it's like his thing now. Like, I've got to big up the stationery.
So I'm trying to remind myself, that's what it is. It's the one thing I know that we do now.
Honestly, that was one of my favourite moments of the whole year, I think.
So what are your awards then? What do you win?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, you lads have cleaned up, it's fair to say. But I've been left with the Most Likely to Monologue About the G1 Marvel UK Comic Award. And the fastest growing vinyl tech collection. So I'm pretty happy with my lot.
Shooing for those awards.
Hey, look, things can only grow when there's room to grow. I think
right, that's true.
Finished. It's done. It's done.
Can I just ask, these awards, are they made out of gold plastic?
They are indeed, yeah. They've already shattered, so sadly, would ship them to you, but it'll just be a pile of dust by now. Anyway, it's been one hell of a year, and we've loved absolutely every minute of it. But needless to say, the biggest honour goes to everyone who's tuned in to listen over the months, especially our wonderful patrons. Now, we really have been bowled over by the response to this whole endeavour, so we wanted to say a massive thank you for all the amazing support that we've received. And in recognition of that today, we're bringing you an episode that we've actually been teasing since the very beginning. And it has kind of become a bit of a running joke that we've been waiting for M.A.S. to finish buying the toy line before we were allowed to speak about it. But now it is time, finally, for Car Robots, aka Robots in Disguise 2001.
I thought he was going to say M.A.S.K.
Yeah, it was M.A.S.K. as well, wasn't it? It was the two of them that we threatened to do from the beginning.
Imagine us keeping promises.
We got there. I know, we got to it.
I thought I turned up to an Omnibots episode. I don't know what's going on now. I'm very confused.
He was just talking about the amazing responses we've got. I think my favourite one was when one of our patrons, our Sixo butlers, was tuning in to listen to the Omnibot minisode, and he pressed play, and he hadn't realised that he hadn't pressed it properly, and he honestly believed for the first 3 or 4 minutes that we had just taken the piss and not recorded anything. But it's just, and he wrote to us and said, for a minute there, I really thought that's what you'd done. Until he realised he hadn't hit play.
That's hilarious. As if we'd do that, eh?
Yeah. We thought about it.
We did talk about doing that. So.
We wouldn't have done that. M.A.S. would have done that.
M.A.S. definitely
wiped out everything we recorded.
Absolutely. No, but it's been a wonderful year. In all seriousness, big shout out to Liam for suggesting the whole thing to begin with. I think it was a really fantastic idea to bring the three of us together. And there are no two people I would have rather have done this with.
No, absolutely right. Absolutely right.
Thank you for saying yes, dudes.
The thing is, I think I was on my way out of the hobby before at the start of 2021. I don't think I would have been anywhere near as involved now. And, with my son coming along, finances have changed. And I think if that had been allied to not doing the podcast, I don't think I'd be buying any toys or doing much in the hobby whatsoever. So when this came along, I remember being really apprehensive when we were going to do our first recording. Yeah. I was just saying to myself, God, how do I tell these guys I'm not really that into this? And then we did it, and it was just like, well, this is fantastic. Even that test run that we did for the first Gimmicks episode.
Oh, we did, didn't we? Yeah, we did a whole recording that no one will ever hear.
No,
I forgot about that. I wonder if we still have it. I don't know. But yeah, no, that it was a fun one. Yeah, I think it's been fascinating actually to watch you actually over this last year kind of get back into it all, and particularly actually with car robots. Which is why it's such a great topic to do for our 1 year, because that's really been, I guess, the sort of trajectory that you've been on the last 12 months, hasn't it? That process of discovery.
Yeah, and the thing is, I hadn't bought any. I've been thinking about buying JRX, and then you guys got me the 3 Car Brothers for my birthday, which at first I thought, well, they've gone and bought me something to make me buy other things instead of getting me something I actually wanted. And I was a little bit peeved at the start. And then actually, as kind of the days wore on after, I thought, this is great. I'm enjoying these so much. And I'd had them before anyway. But yeah, this podcast has made me buy things that I think in my heart I always wanted to get again. Alternators and Vinyl Tech, it's made me buy Vinyl Tech again. And that's made me so happy. No disappointments there. They're on my desk at work. They're on my desk at home. Car Robots is everywhere now. And I took some photos recently of my collection of them now. And I've never been so happy with just these boxes, the toys, fiddling with these toys, experiencing new toys, because everyone's a banger. Every single one is practically fantastic. And this is a toy line I always wanted to get into. And I'm so glad I'm finally there, because I would have hated to have been in this hobby for 20 plus years and missed out on these.
Yeah, I think that's a really good summation, actually. So, and yeah, likewise, I mean, it's not Car Robots or RID, but, I've had a similar experience getting back into Vinyl Tech. All joking aside, it really has been an absolute delight, all as a result of this podcast. And, just to kind of go back and experience a lot of the toys that I'd already seen, many that I hadn't, and some grails on the way as well, kind of giving me the final push that maybe I needed to kind of, take a look at some of those. Checking out a couple of classics examples or Henke, that's been amazing as well. And I definitely want to do more of that.
I've really been enjoying that.
Even a M.A.S.K toy that I picked up.
Right, so. Who would have thought?
I never would have done. If you'd have asked me a year ago, do you reckon you'll pick up a M.A.S.K figure? I mean, Nah, probably not. Do you know what I mean? But it's been great. Honestly, I've loved it. What a journey we've all been on.
I've absolutely loved it. I'm not going to lie and say it's not been expensive because I've ended up buying so many toys I wouldn't have before. But it's like what you were just saying there. It's maybe, I think, because we talk about so many of the same things, and it's made me remember so many toys that I really enjoyed, but genuinely enjoyed, not just enjoyed at the time and then moved on. There are ones where I thought those ones I would like to have forever.
Right.
You know,
actually, really, that resonates with me a lot. I think we were talking about stuff like Feral Rex recently, weren't we? And I was saying there are actually toys like that for me, I know I moved on at the time because I was like, well, I don't need this anymore. Do you know what I mean? And I think a lot of it, particularly in the kind of sphere that I collect in, where it's like masterpiece style stuff or kind of in that periphery, there is a tendency to think of, oh, you only need the one version. So the Power of the Primes one came out. It's like, oh, well, I don't need Feral Rex anymore. I can move that on. I'm kind of done with that. And actually what I'm kind of coming back to through the process of this podcast is realizing, wow, some of those were real staples. Do you know what I mean? And actually I want them again. I miss Feral Rex as one example. I would love to own it. Another time, so maybe in the future, who knows?
It's very easy to get caught up in the tide of new as well, isn't it? So you just keep going on to the newest thing as it's released, and then. But this is maybe sort of like, to use a football term, put my foot on the ball and sort of look around a bit at stuff that I wanted. So I've really refocused on vintage stuff that, even though I've owned it in the past or had it recently and stuff, just being able to go back and get it and be like, yeah, this is the sort of thing I would want forever. And
like Blur.
Yeah. He's not going anywhere, sadly. But like, it was your love for Superfire Convoy, because I love that toy, and I'd always had a slight pang of regret about getting rid of it. But seeing you enjoy it for the first time it made me sort of relive that myself and go, wow, yeah, I really want that. And now, since I've got it again, I would never let it go again. But there's a lot of things like that. I think like my collection has changed a lot like that. There's very much more now. The stuff I would like to keep.
That's a very good point, because everything I've bought as a result of this podcast has been the kind of thing which I've looked at for years and thought, I bet I'd really like that, but I've never bought it. But that's been happening a lot this year. I bet I'd really like Superfire Convoy and God Magnus 20 years down the line. And I got them and I was like, yes, I really do. And I think applying that going forward would be a clever way to continue collecting and enjoying this hobby as much as possible. And also, a lot of the stuff we've been rebuying for at least a time has been extremely affordable because people just haven't been talking about it for years.
Yes.
Car Robots and RID, Alternators, Biotech, Henke and Classics. I mean, some of these things are $20 sealed. It's a great way to collect.
We should finally do at some point a Machine Wars episode, because honestly, that is like the epitome of you could buy it for nothing.
It's definitely the next stop on the station, the next station on the line for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, before we kind of get cracking with the episode proper, we should mention our sponsors for today as well. So, of course, as ever, we have the wonderful TF Source, who very kindly sponsor us. So, tfsource.com, you can check them all out for all your Transformers and third-party needs. We'll be talking a little bit about them in the middle of the pod. And we also have the UK-based gearforgeeks.co.uk, who also sell Transformers, but they do second-hand as well. We're going to be taking a look at some of those. I think they have some second-hand RID bits in at the moment, which should be exciting. And they do lots of other stuff besides. So we'll be talking about both of those. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, until we enable everyone on them. So we're talking about those coming up in the middle of the episode. And of course, we also have our wonderful Patreon as well. We've already mentioned. So if you do love the pod and you want to hear a bit more than just the fortnightly episodes that we put out, you can get also fortnightly mini-sodes that are on there if you go for the top tier. But there's lots of extra content besides that, like early access to episodes and the occasional outtake and things like that as well. So you can find that at patreon.com/Triple Takeover. And finally, we've got our Redbubble, which you can check out at redbubble.com/people/Triple Takeover/explore. Very long and winded, but when you get there, well worth it. Tons of merch, t-shirts, mugs, loads of stuff on there. Go and check it out. Okay, so we're going to get into it on Car Robots and RID 2001. Hopefully I can just say RID for the rest of the episode. I don't keep needing to put the 2001 in there. But that said, let's maybe talk about 2000, 2001 and kind of what we were up to, because, obviously the line started in 2000. We probably think of it more as a 2001 prospect, given that that's when Hasbro released it in the West. After Car Robots. But what were you guys up to at that sort of time in your lives? It was a long time ago now, over 20 years ago.
In 2000, I would have been 20. And in the last year of uni in London, and I was already collecting Transformers, vintage Transformers, and I was aware of newer lines that I wasn't really into them at all until car robots came along. So even though I think maybe most people in our position, our location would have been into RID, I noticed car robots because it was vehicle-based Transformers again, and obviously there were some G1 molds in there, so I noticed it. It was amazing to see clips of a brand new Transformers cartoon that had vehicles in it again. Even though I didn't really understand the cartoon or see much of it in 2000, it was still amazing to know it was there. And I always remember the opening scene with the emergency vehicles.
Mm.
And I wanted a JRX more than anything at the time. And there was a shop in Soho that used to sell car robots toys, and I went in there once and I asked them to get down the JRX and opened it up. And I didn't buy it, student budget at the time, but it was as cool looking as I thought. But yeah, I was already collecting Transformers, so it was a really fascinating thing to me, but I was very vintage focused at the time.
Yeah, that's sort of, I can imagine you in that state. We already kind of heard about your kind of dip off in the 90s, so it's interesting to kind of hear where you were at that sort of point. So how about you, Liam?
Yeah, I think I was at college. I would have been about 18 in the year 2000. So I was at college, and I wasn't collecting Transformers massively, but I was picking bits up because this is the era when the Dreamwave comic was around, wasn't it? So things were starting to appear for the first time.
Reissues as well just started to. Yeah.
Yes, but this is like really the very start of it, wasn't it? Then is once that comic was around, you started to see the T-shirts and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, very true.
At that point, I was still keep my eye out every time I walked past a junk shop or a charity shop or something. I'd look for Transformers that way because I didn't have the internet at home. So it was that, and then I saw the cartoon on Fox Kids. I remember seeing the advert announcing that it was going to be on, and then obviously watching the show. But yeah, I remember the first time I saw the toys was in a shop called Another World. They'd got one in for me on import, and I'm trying to remember what it was, but I can't remember what it was. Yeah, and I didn't know about it. They just used to put stuff aside for me like that. And I remember just seeing the box and being like, wow. In fact, it was Ultra Magnus because I think that was the first one I got.
And you've still got that one now? Is that the one you've still got?
Yeah, I've still got the many parts of it because I gave it to my little brother a long time ago, and so he was a lot smaller. So every time I go to my mum's, there are parts of it that suddenly randomly appear.
Yeah, vintage Ultra Magnuses, and I can call them vintage because it is legit vintage now. It's it's over 20 years old, so they're not some of the best lasting toys, are they? It's fair to say. Like there are elements of it that have kind of worn a bit over time, particularly
it's very
Magnus,
yellow.
I think. Yeah, it's a yellower. And the rubber tires is the thing, and all of that. But we'll get into all of that, I'm sure. So
yeah, I think at this time, Transformers was only just starting to really come back into my radar. Then I was to a lot of other things like football, mainly football.
Was it for you as well because it was car based robots and things like that? Was that did that draw you in more than the Beast stuff?
Yeah, I think it was going back to a cartoon and familiar vehicles because even though they were different to G1, they would look so similar at the same time. Seeing the Lamborghinis and. Yeah, just a lot of cars and a lot of old toys as well. Obviously, were cropping up throughout the toy line later on. So there was a instant feeling of familiarity, and even the box, the packaging. It just felt
box is alive, isn't it?
Yeah,
especially the car robots boxes are really alive.
But it brings back that black and red fade, doesn't it? But just in a new way.
Yeah, definitely. I guess I got a bit of a different experience to you guys then, because in some ways this was me starting to dip out of collecting a little bit because I had been fairly present during Beast Wars. Certainly Beast Machines had been a bit of a lull for me. I didn't really go in on a lot of Beast Machines toys, and I think that was because it's not to get too into Beast Machines, but I think it's part of that trajectory. I think I sort of halted a little bit with Beast Machines because the toys were less cartoon accurate, actually, and I think because there'd been such a good run on the latter years of Beast Wars with Transmetals and Transmetal 2s, with them looking so much like the cartoon, and that somehow really appealed to me, almost on the back of G1, where that wasn't a thing, that it was such a novelty to have that then when Beast Machines, although I did enjoy the Beast Machines cartoon quite a bit, actually, and always have, the fact that the toys, it just felt like a bit of a sort of step backwards in some ways, and I'm sort of now just getting to appreciate a couple of Beast Machines molds now, funnily enough. So actually then, when RID came along, after Beast Machines, I don't know, I was kind of already on the way out a little bit and had been. And I did get a few of the toys, actually. I mean, I had Prowl, I had Sideburn, and I had Magnus, and I had Galvatron, the white one, Galvatron specifically. They were all fantastic. I really, really did like them a lot. But I don't know, it was almost like it was the trajectory was sealed a little bit. Do you know what I mean? That it was almost kind of, I was on my way out a bit, and then I think I didn't really get back into it again, other than a couple of masterpiece bits, which I did pick up around that time, of course, like MP1 and things like that. But it wasn't really until later that I felt like I got back into it a bit more wholesale with stuff like Vinyl Tech and things like that. And that was probably actually not that much of a gap if you think about it, but it feels like it was, in terms of my memory anyway.
It's also must be a thing that we would have been a certain age, 18 to 20 is
for sure.
maybe not an age during that period of time in history that you would imagine diving into this sort of thing. Even though I was already doing that at uni, it would have been weird to have been so into a new line. I think it was very much
absolutely.
Toy collecting was like reliving old history rather than just being in it for the toys.
I wasn't into vintage stuff either, really, to be fair, at the time. I mean, I definitely had a good old break from it there, and that coincided with me being 18. I mean, at 18, I moved out of home as soon as I could. Just happy to get all that independence. So, I was living with friends, and I was working a lot, and working some crazy hours and going out a lot, and just life was full. Do you know what I mean? And life is full now as well. But that's not. I don't know. It was a different time, and toy collecting didn't really kind of fit into that necessarily. But it still always kind of caught my interest, and definitely RID was such that, like you both said, it was very intriguing at the time with the vehicle modes and all of that kind of stuff. And it's, for me now, I think it's a line that really is kind of, I don't know, both underrated, but also sort of as established itself in some ways as being one of the better or most interesting lines in Transformers history. And I say that with no small amount of awareness of how it might sound like an exaggeration, but I really do think it's that good.
I mean, it was very much pitched as a Transformers is back at the time, wasn't it? Because I think after Beast Machines, I mean, for me, I remember the Transformers branding on Beast Wars and Beast Machines was so much smaller, it didn't feel like Transformers, whereas this was very much branded as Transformers first and foremost, wasn't it?
This was Transformers first.
Yeah,
RID, wasn't it? And that was more like it's Beast Machines.
But that's more a Hasbro thing, isn't it? Because I'm looking at all my Takara Car Robots packaging, and the Transformers logo is actually really small, and it's more a Car Robots logo with little exhausts and car parts coming out of this design that they've got on the box. And I think as a Transformers person who maybe hasn't looked at the toys in years, you could walk past these in the shop and think that they were something else. Is it Brave? Is it like Power Rangers? Is it Gundam? Is it something else? If you weren't into the scene, you might have walked past Car Robots Takara packaging and not known that that was a Transformers product.
Yeah, I find the Car Robots packaging a little bit nondescript, actually. Like, I like it a lot, and it's got nice, kind of very colourful
Controversial
design.
Opinions was the last episode.
I don't mean it even in a bad way. I think, as you said, in terms of the branding and being aware that it's a Transformers thing. It's sort of similar to some of the like Beast Wars second packaging and stuff like that in the sort of style, although the colours and things are very different. And I actually do like the boxes. I have a couple of them and things like that, Car Robots versions. So it is nice, but yeah, it's not the most distinct Transformers packaging, it's fair to say.
But it is amazing because the vehicle is king on these boxes. Like the very first box, the Superfire Convoy, it came in this window box first, and it was you just saw this massive, amazing fire truck, and it just looked like the most fun toy to play with. You looked at it and you knew, if I roll that along the floor, it's going to make me happy, however old I am. Yeah. And then they just turned to just art boxes with as much love given to the vehicle mode as the robot mode on that packaging. Well, for the good guys anyway. And I'm just looking around at my Car Robots boxes, and I can see God Magnus's box, Ultra Magnus and RID, and that vehicle mode just on the box is so attractive like that. And I know that's what got me about JRX's packaging as well. It's just how prominent the vehicles were.
Just remember the thrill of seeing RID packaging though, in like Woolworths, for the first time.
Yeah, absolutely. That was a thrill.
Because even though there had been Beast Wars, it just felt like this massive gap between what I remembered as Transformers and this, and they just felt more connected like that. But Beast Wars had always felt like something that wasn't really for me or mine, whereas this suddenly felt like I was being pulled back to that.
And it was really good for people who hadn't imported Car Robots, because it's like the connection you needed to get into it. First of all, you didn't have to import it. It was in stores, and it was emblazoned with Transformers. It did everything right that a Transformers line needs to do. stuff that you already knew was cool because it was in car robots and it was in the fandom for a year already in the year 2000. And then in 2001, it's in your local Woolworths.
And it's a completely different space as well. Like when you think about what the fandom is now compared to what it was then, and like the internet, like how many, like I had very little knowledge of car robots. I knew it sort of existed, but I had no idea what it was because I wasn't on the internet. And I imagine a lot of people would have been the same in that era. So that RID would have been their first taste of it.
Oh, definitely. And I know sometimes in these episodes we do kind of talk about what life was like at the time and things like that. But I think for the benefit of younger viewers, it's worth clarifying that this was an age before smartphones or anything like that. Do you know what I mean? There was no iPhone at the time. There was no, you could, like, the idea of getting the internet on your phone. Was it the old WAP phones or whatever that you could just about get on like the internet, but it would take half an hour and cost you about £15.60 to just like get on.
There was no Facebook or Twitter.
No,
like,
none of that.
Community.
There was no social media. No social media.
It was Usenet. It was like, it was Yahoo groups for lots of people was where the community was, or it was alt.toys.transformers on Usenet or through Google groups and stuff like that. That's where the community was.
I was using the internet on my Dreamcast, my Sega Dreamcast at this time. The control pad. That was my first way of getting into the internet, was through that.
Fancy.
I remember getting regular internet at uni and that being an amazing thing to be able to use the internet in the internet room.
Yeah.
These computer rooms were always packed. It was so exciting to be able to have some time on the internet. And my time was spent discovering GeoCities Transformers sites and seeing Car Robots toys and seeing things like My Cool Toys. I don't know if anyone remembers that website. Was it Rick Ruff? Rick Ruff who used to run that site.
Name rings a bell, yeah.
Loads of amazing stuff on things on there. Back then I was so obsessed because it was so new to be into the hobby back then. It's just such an amazing thing to think that I could relive that part. But there was a good degree of shame to it as well, because I remember people around me just simply didn't understand. Like my parents were like, why are you going out and coming back with toys? Like, what are you doing? You're in university. What's going on?
It was a different time in that regard as well. I mean, it sounds silly to say. I don't know what it's like to be 20 years old in this day and age and be a toy collector, but it strikes me that generally speaking, it's a lot more accepted now.
Far
I think
more.
because
Good
there are.
We're doing a podcast.
Well, yeah. There were no. Yeah, there was none of that, was there? I mean, to the point where I now get people come round. To my house or whatever and see the collection. Not so much in the last year or two, of course, but
they have to buy tickets, don't they?
Yeah, absolutely, for the Sixo experience, absolutely.
Sixo experience.
Shown in by a butler. That's what our patrons really do, by the way. They curate Sixo's collection.
The grand tour. Triple Takeover mugs handed out and things like that.
Little lanyards.
But there you get, like, I've been surprised by the number of people that do come in, see it, and just kind of go, oh, okay, nice. You know what I mean? And it's not such a weird point of conversation anymore. Whereas I remember, being young, let's say, and even just like stuff like MP1, having that, and people would be like, what the hell is that? Do you know what I mean? It was like a real... There was just a real kind of stigma to it for the longest time, which always struck me as weird. But that's changed a lot. I'm sure that still happens, but it's changed.
You can buy a lot of this stuff like in supermarkets now, can't you? Everything it's like, but not even just in the toy aisle anymore. It's everywhere. And I think the world has changed very much in like the way it sort of perceives pop culture. They've become pop culture, haven't they?
Yeah. You know it's changed when Lego have now started advertising with like men with grey hair in the adverts. Do you know what I mean? And like they show old
adults
dudes,
welcome. They say
exactly.
Tweets, don't they?
That's when you know it's totally changed. I mean, it's as much a sort of adult collectible market as it is a children's market in many ways these days. And I think you see that a lot with the reissues that are going on. And we've had the first Car Robots reissue already, slightly unsuccessfully, but it's happened. And hopefully there'll be many more. But that's a world away from where it was 20 years ago. It's only fair to say.
Yeah, because that was the point that people who were kids during the 80s had reached an age where nostalgia was kicking in, disposable incomes were kicking in. And I just can't see the generations before us having that sort of nostalgia for what they grew up with toy-wise. It's almost like our generation was one of the first to experience what we experienced at that time in the late 90s and early 2000s. And
I think so.
In a way, it's like this toy line came out in exactly the right time for a lot of us, and also exactly the worst time. Because if you're just completely consumed by nostalgia, you wouldn't have blinked twice at car robots, robots in disguise, Armada, this kind of thing at that time.
Yeah, I think actually it's funny how different, it's probably worth acknowledging how different everything could have been in terms of Hasbro, because it wasn't originally slated to be a thing at all, was it? Hasbro were going to do Transtech, which was going to be their follow-up to Beast Machines. And if you've never seen the Transtech designs, go and check them out online. It's absolutely, I mean, say it's out
Pointy.
there. I mean, yeah, exactly. Round and pointy, like in equal measure somehow. It's bizarre.
I assume they didn't make them because they knew some kid would lose an eye.
Yeah. It's really hard to imagine what they would have looked like as toys. I often think like it could have been incredible, or it could have just been a total WTF.
Some kid would have lost an eye, or Turbo Master owners would have lost the other eye.
Yeah, very true.
Missed the eye patch. No.
But yeah, Transtech was not to be, and it got cancelled. And then they knew that obviously Unicron Trilogy Armada was kind of on the way, but they had a year of product to fill, empty shelves basically. So they just kind of ported over car robots, didn't they? Very hastily.
Well, that's the thing. How do you know how it was pitched in Japan? I mean, it was always intended to be a 1-year effort in Japan as well. Is that right?
I believe so. Yeah, I don't think there was any plans, as far as I'm aware, to have it go on longer than that. So that was always kind of the deal, as far as I was aware. But I know that it was very much Hasbro knew that it could be slotted into a year as well. They knew that it wasn't going to be an ongoing thing, that it was just literally a 2001 and done affair. And same with the cartoon as well. They kind of agreed to pick up a certain amount of episodes, and the fact that the whole thing was so finite worked out sort of perfectly. And of course they did a bit of a number on the cartoon and kind of chopped it up a bit and changed various bits of dialogue and
characters that were represented by a child in car robots just became a very normal adult. I'm thinking of Midnight Express,
who has totally different.
I think it's J4 was like a kid. I remember hearing the cartoon thinking, is it a female? Have they actually recast female to male? But no, it was actually a child in car robots. And
is that true? I did not know that.
Yeah, the rail racer, the three of them are all really different personalities.
Yeah.
So it's all mad, but a lot of the characters are, to be fair, and they threw in a lot more references to Transformers gone by as well. Do you know what I mean? And threw in that kind of stuff, that kind of nostalgia factor a little bit more. Made various sort of changes, added in quite a bit of humor here and there. Just lots of stuff to make it quite different. And the thing that I really kind of, I don't know, amuses me about RID, especially more than car robots, is just what an odds and sods line it is then. The fact that Hasbro had this year to fill, they got a whole year's worth of toys from Takara and went, great, here we go. And someone at some point went, hang on a minute, guys, we can also just ship out all these repaints from every other line that we've ever had in Transformers history. And that's what they did. It's the fact that there's literally
Bruticuses. They got out of it. That's amazing,
totally,
right?
Just balls to the wall with it, right? Just like literally every line represented in repaint form. From G1 to Beast Machines in some form or another.
That's to say nothing of what they did to the new molds. I was like, Optimus Prime, fire truck, red, bollocks, have it in yellow. What?
Very true. Very true.
Like landfill is basically like, yeah, all right, we like these fruit pastel colours that you've got, but here it is in yellow, and now
and green.
Devastator,
Green, yeah.
And I'm sorry, but the less we say about what they did to spy changes, the better.
Oh, I love all the Hasbro spy changes.
Yeah, they are amazing. I'm really stopping myself now getting into.
I was going to say, I hope Maz loves them with the amount he's bought recently. So.
I'm sitting on a complete collection of Takara.
I was going to say, yeah, you've completed the Takara one.
I am so happy with this that I wasn't the last person I would expect to actually finally complete this. I mean, I'm still chasing mini spies 2 years on, so that this is a wonderful part of it. But we will have more on spy changes a little bit later.
地球の平和を守るため立ち上がれファイヤーコンボイ今だ合体ファイヤー巨大合体スーパーファイヤーコンボイ
But yeah, the cartoon, I mean, having now watched RID, and I watched RID many years ago up to the point where they discovered Fortress Maximus, but then I stopped watching the rest. Not because I didn't like it, I just didn't get around to it. But I recently finished watching the cartoon. I watched the whole thing again in over a period of like a week, and it was amazing. Highly recommend you do that. And then I saw a couple of scenes of car robots with subtitles, and I realized I should actually watch that too, because it's going to be a different cartoon. There's loads of other things they mention which are kind of cool, if not just for the voices, then the things that they name things, like JRX and his J Punch, just stuff like that. It's funny and it's cool, and I.
So have you started on it then? Have you got cracking with it?
I want to do that. It's just something to savor for when I have.
You're going to have to really pay attention as well with all the subtitles and everything.
Yeah.
So
not like Liam who falls asleep with it on in the background.
No, that's my experience rewatching it this week. But when it came out, I remember I used to videotape it when I was at college, and it used to fall into that funny gap of when I was getting changed to go and play football and waiting. So I'd put it on and I'd watch it as I was getting changed. And so most days, and then I loved it, and I rewatched it a few years ago. I really enjoyed it. But trying to rewatch it in preparation for this episode, it's when you've got it on in the background, it didn't quite engage me. When something makes you keep looking around to find out what's going on, because it's just so nonsensical. It's in a great way, because so often there's not really a plot most of the time.
It is nonsensical. A lot of elements of RID cartoon.
The charm of it, though, isn't it?
Yes, it is. But then you get moments where ruination is combining, and the music does the and it's like, oh my god, look at this! It's the most beautiful G1 Bruticus animation.
Yeah,
and look, the way those toys look on screen, it's amazing.
This is what I was going to say about
such a buzz I get from that.
The animation, those G1, like the spy changers and stuff like that, and the Bruticus and Scourge, those toys have never looked better than in that animation. Like, they're so blocky, but they move. They're still dynamic, but they're so chunky.
They've done it really well.
Just want to pull them out the screen. They look so, like this. The spy changers. I love the spy changers, and I would kill for toys that were just like they are in that cartoon, because they've just got that G1 rectangles. They're just rectangles. It's great.
All of them are just done so superbly well. The one that always reminds me is there's an episode just when they're I think it's just before they discover Fort Max, because of course it's called Fort Max in the cartoon, and it's just before they discover Max, and they're like all lined up. So you've got all the Predacons, Decepticons, and all the Autobots, on either side, all in alternate mode. And they literally all transform one after the other, and it's like it's almost like a 15-minute sequence of just constant transformations and like calling out their names, transform, terrorize, and all of that kind of stuff. And it's just glorious to watch. And it's funny because that kind of stuff gets mocked a lot in more modern cartoons, but actually there's something about the way that Car Robots RID does it that's so engaging, I think, that I'm there for that stuff. And I think a lot of it is because the on-screen transformations are so accurate to the toys. And so it is like watching the figure that you know intimately from your own experience in hand. It's just like watching it flip over and whatever else. Even the way that Prime splits apart and his legs fold out and things like that. Love the way that the build team kind of spin around as they combine and stuff like that.
Who's the one with the cheesy grin, the amazing grin? It's not Hightower, it's not Grimlock, it's not Wedge, it's the other one. What's he called in RID?
Heavy Load.
Heavy Load, yeah. The big grin. And the toy's got that grin. It's great.
The toy does have that grin. Yeah, I don't know. They're just all really nicely represented, and it just makes it very kind of visceral. Like you were talking about the music. I am just obsessed slightly with the music when Rail Racer transforms.
Yes.
You kind of get that do like in the background. It's just incredible. Really, really lovely.
And the drum and bass theme tune where it starts going. It's just like that's always beatboxing it.
Yeah, it's just it just works on every level for me. It's kind of it's the right level of gratuitous transformation sequences, but also with some actual story to it and enough ridiculousness. It works. There's a lot of overarching plot actually with the whole Fort Max thing. It kind of goes on throughout the whole series, doesn't it?
Yes. Yeah, it's the nexus of everything great about Transformers. It's slightly ridiculous cartoon, but with enough cool factor that you can't deny how much you enjoy it, and you just keep watching. It looks like the toys, so it makes the toys infinitely cooler. The toys themselves are varied, but they're great to handle, and they come from different eras. So you have some of the best of G1 in there with Bruticus, and you've got some of the best of G2 with Scourge, Black Convoy. You've got the new stuff. You've got elements of Beast Wars in there that is then incorporated into vehicles. It's like, it's almost like the future and the past and the present just came together to make this peak Transformers experience that lasted 1 year. Imagine the quality that went into 1 year of toys. How long do we have to wait to extract the best out of a modern line of Transformers or a modern theme of Transformers? Because this lot did it in one line. Compare Titan's Return over 2 to 3 years as a theme, how good that line is, but how long it took to get it. And this came out within the year. You know, like you got Superfire Convoy, Optimus Prime, you got Magnus, Turn of the Godfire Convoy, you got JRX, Build Team, bunch of spy changers, those Car Brothers, some beasties, Skybite.
We're going to bring back the music.
Bruticus. Yeah. All that stuff in 1 year.
Yeah, it is amazing. It's fair to say.
And a great cartoon.
It's incredibly varied, though, isn't it? There's something for everybody. It's a rare Transformers line. Like you're saying with Titan's Return, they're all the same sort of figure. Like, it's great. It's varied characters, but the toys are all very similar, depending on scale.
If you weren't into the concept, you weren't into it, period.
Yeah, and that's the same with most modern lines. They're all very consistent in what they do. They're very focused. Whereas this was just everything. There was something, no matter what kind of Transformers you're into, there was something in there.
It's a real melting pot, isn't it? It shouldn't work. It's literally everything thrown in all at the same time. You know, so you've got, I mean, any toy line with something like G1 Bruticus sitting alongside, well, as you said, Transmetal 2 Beast Wars basic toys. That should just not be a thing. You know, with G2 Laser Optimus Prime thrown in.
And some 10 changing bizarro robot that turns into a hand.
With a hand
mammoth.
Alternate mode, you know.
Yeah.
The G2 Soundwave bike that never got released. That appears here for the first time, doesn't it? Actually,
that was released in G2. Actually, it was going to be re-released as Soundwave in G2, but it did make it in G2 also as the Laser Cycles. Yes, it's not an entirely new mold for RAD, but it's the fact that he turns up as a hand for the first time in the cartoon as well. Like that's his introduction, is as that blooming hand flying through the sky or whatever. It's just ridiculous.
Some of that dialogue is terribly painful, though, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is.
But again, they mix that with the cool stuff.
Yeah, a lot of trash talk. There's a lot of trash talk, which I really enjoy.
Really believe you would get the better of me, did you?
Yeah, so that's like the epitome of it. It's just it feels very G1 in that regard, though, as well, because they've got all those kind of classic jabs and insults, you know, as they're about to do battle. You know, I think there's a line in one of the first episodes where they're all just like standing around and the Predacons are there. And you're like, you guys should really be fighting now. And one of the brothers just says to Optimus something, or is it Optimus says about, oh, I thought you were at a petting zoo. Ha ha ha. You know, like this. And you're like, guys, just start shooting. Do you know what I mean? But it's hilarious.
It's funny though, because you can see a lot of the time where they've obviously, before they were doing the voiceover, they had to watch it and they realized they had to do enough dialogue to cover this bit of mouth moving. So some of it's just, they just say really random stuff, like half the stuff Skybite says, it's like followed up by something dead quickly that he's like, what?
Yeah, there is a lot of that. You get a lot of
talking.
Yeah, you get a lot of kind of like extrapolated sentences and then just suddenly blah, 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 right at the end just to kind of fill it in. It is funny. So it is quite obvious that it's a dub at times, I think. But credit to them, it's a good job.
Is. You knew the tone when Wankus was cast as Prowl, you know. And then you've got things like the Skid Z episode is absolutely my favorite, without a doubt, which you've got this race in the desert or wherever it is, and there's trains racing in the desert with cars and a shark.
I was going to say, flying shark.
It's just, that episode is fantastic. That is a microcosm of everything that's good and mad about this show, is that episode, Skid Z's Choice. It's just, I could rewatch that over and over again. It was the highlight for me this watch through as well.
Yeah, I'm going to have to sit down and watch it properly again, honestly, because it's been years for me, actually. I really wanted to rewatch it before doing the recording, and it's just not been possible. So I'm absolutely going to have to sit and re-immerse myself in it.
It's great fun. And it's amazing to remember what a Transformers cartoon was like when it didn't have to try and appeal to adults at the same time, you know. And it's really, you know, like most now, even sort of the younger ones, they still have the storytelling is more adult, isn't it? In a way, even then, it's longer form and stuff like that. Whereas this just feels crazy and silly, but all times with no pretenses of anything, you know, deep like that.
Some of it's dated though, hasn't it?
Yeah.
The whole Sideburn and it was Junko and then Kelly in the UK. In the RID. That whole thing is absolutely unbearable to watch now. Yeah. It's really cringe. You wouldn't see anything like that in a modern cartoon, you'd hope. But yeah, it's really awkward to watch that. It's super uncomfortable, and it got
100%.
very tiresome by like episode 3 or 4. Never mind by the time it stretched into the end of the season.
Yeah.
When it first aired, I remember watching it then and just finding it really more confusing than anything else. It just because it wasn't really aware that it was a Japanese show ported over. So at first it was really confusing. Like, why do they keep doing this? What's the end game with this? But yeah, it just always struck very oddly paced.
There's a lot of really random elements in it for sure.
Yeah.
Some stuff that I think doesn't translate or wouldn't have translated even at the time. Other stuff that definitely hasn't lasted well 20 years on. I'm sure. So yeah, I'll be fascinated to see and rewatch what that's like today.
The cool stuff doesn't stop being cool though.
Yeah.
Like nothing about those transformations stops being cool, and how toy accurate the animation is, and it's beautiful how toy accurate it is. And it's almost more impressive on something like Sideburn Speedbreaker than it is on the G1 stuff. It's like amazing to see how dynamic just Sideburn looks walking through an old pyramid next to a human character, and just think that clunking that you get in G1 cartoon. You look at your favorite G1 toys next to a human and they look massive on screen and they just seem like epic, heroic robots. You get that with Sideburn in an episode just offhand at the beginning of one of the episodes, and it's really amazing. It's that feeling is perfectly recreated in this show.
100%. I always think there's so much that the cartoon kind of does that really leans into the toys and represents them so nicely. Even silly stuff like the fact that on X-Brawn, when people sit inside his car mode, that his head is just right there, that kind of stuff. That you're just like, any other cartoon would have dealt with that. If that was Generation 1, it would have been completely overhauled. But they really lent into it, and they're just like, sure, their head sits behind the windscreen, so we'll animate it that way. And I respect that a lot. And I think there's a lot about the cartoon that just, it knows what it is, it steers into it. Great.
Wedge is an example of that. Every time you see Wedge's transformation, you see the combiner head is just hanging around redundant in there while his little robot head pops out, and you just think, oh, that was cool. What was that? It's exactly the same thing. It's just leaning into knowing what it is.
How wonderful is it though, seeing like things like the Combaticons in there, because you're so used to the G1 now. We're so used to the G1 animation models, but when you see them in RID, it's the toys. Yeah, but they're still 100%. So dynamic with it. Like every time you see not Move-Or, isn't it, instead of Blast-Off, but like you see the way he moves and everything, and it's just the toy, and you're like, it just gives life to those vintage toys at the same time, in a way that the cartoon didn't.
100%. I know we sort of said it briefly before, but I always think the same of Laser Prime. That just that's a design that I loved anyway. So actually seeing it in animation, all right, it's a different color scheme, but seeing it in animation was just incredible. And it really kind of had the same feeling for me as the first time I saw stuff like Master Force, where you've got King Poseidon and Piranha and all of that kind of stuff, or seeing Jinrai, animated for the first time. Just Dark really Winds. Amazing. Just like, oh my God, do you know what I mean? Look at these designs that have finally been brought to the screen in the way that really, as you said, represents the toys superbly well.
Did you get any of that with Skybite? Because he's TM2 Cybershark.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, definitely. Actually, Cybershark, the Transmetal 2, was a toy that I loved during the Beast Wars era, and I never had the Skybite repaint at the time. That was a relatively recent acquisition. And I got to say, I mean, actually, I think the Skybite repaint, and this is a theme in Car Robots and RID, actually, that a lot of the repaints are nicer than the original models. And I say
Very true.
Not lightly, but it is true in many situations. The most obvious is the ones that they recycle from Machine Wars, but we'll get into that in a minute, I'm sure. It was interesting to see it for sure. Skybite, we haven't really talked about him too much yet, but that's another example of just how crazy that cartoon was. I mean, Skybite really kind of became the breakout character, didn't he, in many ways?
He started off as a mean, pretty dangerous looking villain.
Yeah.
But then
it went completely left field from there.
How do you even describe that change?
I know. Yeah, it was very bizarre. But just even the fact that they lent into having a flying shark as a regular presence in this cartoon. And I love the fact that there was no like, oh, well, how are we going to get to the water? Like, we're going to need some water scenes here to kind of have him in his shark. But no, just have him flying. And the first time you see him, and the fin is like
up a road,
it's literally going down the highway or whatever. Do you know what I mean? Just like tearing up the pavement. It's ridiculous. But I think it's fun. And in a way, the cartoon is how you would play with the toys as a kid. It's not. It doesn't have to make sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Epitomized by the way the spy changers pop out of billboards
Yeah, right.
That's fantastic.
and drive along
that.
the side of the highway.
Yeah.
It's the billboard from M.A.S.K. It's Billboard Black. There it is. There is a bit in that episode with the spy changers that always reminds me of M.A.S.K. when Optimus Prime goes to the computer and he goes, "Can you select
Right.
the best agents
Yes.
for this mission or whatever?"
Absolutely
And
right.
it tickled me that a minute later he comes out of the billboard. But like, it's also like that time as well with the animation. It's important to remember as well. Like, that's when anime was really taking off in the West,
Yeah.
wasn't it? And so all of the cartoons as well, like kids' cartoons, had that Japanese animation because they were all starting to use that. I feel like had that Digimon vibe, didn't it? Sort of like Gundam Wing was big. Everything was porting over like that, and it's, I don't know, this I think more of the thing that pulled me into Transformers was actually that I was really into anime at this time, like everybody else. So I think that's how it more fell into my watch pile.
And it hasn't aged. It hasn't aged badly.
It's still as beautiful.
Yeah. The
I mean,
animation.
in terms of the animation specifically,
Right, yeah, just the look of
Yeah.
it, the aesthetic,
I would agree.
the sideburn thing is the only thing I think has aged terribly from this cartoon and could live without. I could have lived without it at the time, to be honest, but everything else, I think, from toys to cartoon to, well, just the whole feel of the line, I think is aged well. That's why people are still fascinated by it.
I think if you're a new collector now and you're, how do I get into maybe some really cool vintage Transformers that you've never experienced before, where to start. G1 might seem like a bit of a daunting prospect. I don't know. I think this is a great place to start because it's got, as I say, molds from every prior era of Transformers in terms of RID, not necessarily car robots, but it does. The cartoon is really accessible and not very long and very easy watch. The toys themselves are hella fun. Some fantastic molds. There are no real bad toys. Like a couple on the sort of periphery of RID. Actually, like I will say that maybe are slightly less good, but we'll come to that. But generally speaking, the standard is very high.
Yeah, and they're very obtainable as Hasbro RID toys.
Absolutely.
I've decided to go the Takara car robots route because that's what captured my imagination originally, and I wanted to chase that vibe. And they've been very hard to find. I mean, it's a year on now from when I first thought about buying these, and I still haven't completed the line. But it is also, the Japanese version of the line is like textbook poster boy version of what a Japanese Transformers toy line looks like. All the standard toys, stacks of store exclusives in clear repaint colors, lucky draw versions in black or clear plastic and special editions, all sorts of obscure stuff, and then like a super prize version that very few people can get. It is just the epitome of what a classic Transformers line looks like in Japan.
Yeah, it's not a line to go completionist on. I don't think. I think you'd have a hard time.
You think it is, like, production wise, no problem. You could probably get all the production toys.
Oh yeah.
Exclusives, store exclusives, you can get the store exclusives, but the prize ones are just off the table.
That there's a couple, isn't there, that are just, I mean, I would love to one day own that black Superfire convoy. That would just be one of the holiest of grails, really. But
Black God Magnus
seems unlikely. Yeah, exactly. Black God Magnus is just off the table. I
or
think it's
the accessories for Lucky Draw Brave Maximus, so that you can have Cog and you can have Gasket and Grommet and the sword and the guns and the other
guns,
gun.
Yeah.
I mean, I know people
Very
who own
unlikely.
that, and it's incredible that you could have that, and it just comes in this white box with all the accessories and the big playmat that you get with Brave Max. I just love that if I could have that. But yeah, and then of course recently, what I began to realize is that a bunch of the exclusives I didn't even know ever existed, like a slightly different version of the Crystal Prime that doesn't come in the Godfire Convoy set, but was sold individually or given out individually as a prize. And I thought, okay, so there's that version that is virtually no photographs of anywhere.
Is it actually different?
It is different from the one you get in the Godfire Convoy one, yeah.
How funny. I didn't know it was different. It's interesting.
Super annoying, actually. Because, where'd you get it?
Super fire annoying.
Yes. Yeah. Well, there's a couple in there because there was the... what was the re-release of the RID Prime that was done in a 2-pack, and that had a slight colour change to it as
Costco
well.
One. Costco
Yeah,
yeah.
that
it
was
had
it.
The black chest part was the most visible difference
Right.
on it.
It did very minor little tweaks, wasn't it? Paint application tweaks. but I saw a lineup picture of it, and actually, I don't know. I think there is something to just collecting all the Prime variants. That's nice in itself. I know there's a couple of big collectors on the scene, aren't there, that have got all the variants and things and done some amazing pictures of them.
I don't know anyone who's got everything from the line.
I think Tony
Alex
Beckler
from
has got.
he's got all the primes.
Yeah,
But I don't think he has the single prize Crystal Prime, the one that we were just talking about. I don't think he has that one.
Yeah, I was going to say he's definitely got. Certainly, the last time I remember seeing the pictures, it looked like, if not all of them, a lot of them. It was quite an impressive photo
It was
shoot.
just so Takara of the time to do so many exclusives. And then you've got the Kabaya ones as well, and then the smaller Kabaya DX ones, and those are really tough to get as well. Like and they're in multiple colors as well. 3 versions of JRX you could get as a Kabaya kit. So nightmare.
Yeah, on the flip side, the RID line is just plentiful beyond belief, man. Honestly, like so much of it is just sitting on eBay, sealed for 10 to 20 quid a pop, just waiting to be bought. So,
or at least it was until this aired.
Yeah, well, maybe. I did notice some of it had gone up recently. I feel like there was 1 or 2 lingering bits for me. I've mostly got it all, but there was 1 or 2 lingering bits, like the cycle repaints, actually, the 2 motorcycles that I just hadn't picked up for ages, and I'd seen it going somewhere sealed for like a tenner, and I was like, oh, okay, another time. Do you know what I mean? It's fine. And then now it seemingly has.
Is that AXA and Sideways?
Yeah, it has just crept up, just that little nudge, just that little bit, to the point where you're like, I wish I bought it when it was a tenner.
Well, our listeners have been pre-buying this stuff in anticipation of the episode spiking the prices, and they've been doing it for months.
Those bastards.
Cheers to ourselves for making it hard for ourselves.
トランスフォーマーカーロボットビデオ DVD シリーズ続々と発売中限定カラーモデルが当たるよ
But should we maybe just summarize what the difference between car robots and robots
we
in
absolutely
disguise
should.
is?
Well, I think so. The key difference in my head is that Car Robots was a line which is mostly original molds, but does have some repaints from other lines. So but it's a very slim line, actually, isn't it? I mean, you've got the convoy mold, which most people will know as Optimus Prime. You've got it's the fire engine. You've got the Magnus to go with that. You've then got Megatron, Gigatron on
Gigatron.
Gigatron, yeah, on the
Gigatron?
I don't know. Actually, I've always said Gigatron, but maybe it is Gigatron. On the Decepticon side, on the Predacon side, actually, who's a new mold, and that was a weird new mold because it always seems like it's a Beast Wars mold, but it's not.
Yes, I really thought it was a Beast Wars toy.
I remember actually you saying, "Oh, is it not a Beast Wars thing?" And you were surprised.
Yeah, and then realizing it wasn't, I was still apprehensive because I kept looking at that toy, thinking I'm going to struggle with that. And it doesn't look like all the other vehicle transformers that have super defined modes. And getting that toy in hand, it is by far my least favorite of this line. In fact, I would go so far as to say I despise it.
Oh,
and it's everything I hate about Transformers in one toy. It doesn't last. The chrome is terrible. I mean, it was cracked out of the box, and I bought a sealed one, and it just flakes by looking at it. The tolerances aren't great, so the things don't really fit together as they should. Instructions were confusing. Stuff doesn't stay where it's meant to stay, so there's modes when arms and legs and limbs just sort of hang in the place that they're meant to be, but it doesn't clip or it doesn't hold. Some of the modes are really a stretch, and that's just Gigatron with the 6 modes. Never mind the Devil Gigatron with the 10 modes. This was this one. And it doesn't stand, which really bugs me. Like it refuses to stand up. Out of the box, out of a sealed box, those feet and the very many parts of the foot, which are the dragon mouth, just simply don't support that toy properly. And I've always got to lean it up against something. But that robot mode is one of the most beautiful things you'll ever see.
Again, that controversial opinions was last time, right? Like,
I know, but I was so disappointed in this toy.
I know, yeah.
Really. I haven't transformed it beyond that one time. I transformed it out of the box, never again.
I really am so disappointed to hear that. I knew it already, but yeah, it does, because I actually really like that toy. What can I say? Like I agree with you about some of the shortcomings. Actually, I do think it is a nightmare to stand up. The heels, particularly the ankles, and all of that are a bit wonky for sure, and that's on both versions. So it does have trouble standing, and I have that with both of mine. Although both of mine are the Hasbro versions. And yeah, some of the modes are a bit out there. I don't mind the transformations. I've got to say, I think it's all right. And
I think I'm just put off touching it again because it will just damage it further and further
Well,
and further.
that
and
is
it just
fair.
won't look as good as it looks standing as the cartoon version of the bad guy, which is what it does best for me.
maybe I've been conditioned to not be accepting of that stuff, but it's like anything, isn't it? When you're more kind of aware of it, I suppose, or more versed in it. So because I collected so many Transmetals and Transmetal 2s from Beast Wars, the whole chrome thing is something that, vacuum metallized chrome or whatever, was something that I was really familiar with. And to be fair, I haven't had any problems, I don't think, on any of my versions. And I had a Galvatron I got it at the time. So since 2001, and I had it all this time, and I recently sold it and got a new one. And the only reason I sold it was because I really wanted a mint one. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But actually the old one was still in, I think, pretty impeccable condition.
I think if you'd opened it at the time and played with it, it wouldn't have ended up like mine. I think the fact that it hasn't been touched, because I've seen other sealed examples and I can see the cracks through the plastic window. I didn't know to look for it when I bought mine, and now I can see that I shouldn't have bought the one I did.
But again, I think it's on individual copies. So I've had a Transmetal Rampage, for example. It's the big crab from Beast Wars. And I've had 3 copies of that toy. I've had the Takara one, which I have now, and I've had 2 copies of the original Kenner version. And the 1 copy, which is my original one, no chrome cracking. And I sold that to a friend of ours, actually, who got it and would testify, I'm sure, that there's very little chrome wear at all on that. And it's not like I'd particularly, made a big effort to look after it all those years, but it was fine. And then I got a replacement one, and I ended up selling it on because as soon as I got it cracking on the chrome. And I think it's just one of those things where I hate to say it, but I think it's individual copies. I think some copies are fine.
It's luck of the draw.
It's luck of the draw. And that's
not
crap
a lucky
to say. Not a lucky draw. That's crap to say, and that's horrible because in terms of collecting, there's no way to know. But if it's got cracks in the chrome, you're going to struggle with it for sure. But maybe you get lucky with it. And there is stuff you could do. You can coat it in polish or whatever to kind of keep it a bit more pristine. But it's a shame.
Yeah, I mean, just away from the Car Robots version, I mean, my experience, I got this toy when it came out. Somebody bought me as a birthday gift in that year, the RID version. And like you, Maz, I really didn't like it. And because it just didn't feel like any Transformer I knew. At that point, I was so used to picking up G1, G2 toys and being able to transform them. And the instructions were terrible. And it seemed so, not just complex, but really uninvitingly complex. It was a toy that didn't want you to figure it out because it just didn't make sense to me at all. And I just didn't like it. Everything about it would fall over. And there's still parts of it again. Yeah.
The whole twisting the things at the bottom of the legs in Dragon mode, that was a really weird step that I feel like I hadn't experienced anything like that when I was just experiencing recently. But yeah, that's the feeling I got from it, so like straight off the bat.
Have you warmed up to it since, Liam?
I think I would appreciate it more now. Like I've seen it since and held it since, and I like it more because it looks like the Megatron off the show. Now it's more like, it's a cool look, and it's an interesting thing in the world of Megatrons that look so similar.
I couldn't get rid of it because of that.
But at the time, I remember really being like, "Oh God, I really dislike this. It's horrible." And so yeah,
I'll freely admit that a lot of the alt modes are passable at best for me, and I don't mind saying that. Like it's definitely the robot mode is the standout by a country mile.
Doesn't it?
Yeah, it's incredible looking robot mode.
The one alt mode I really wanted to keep it in was the really funny Dick Dastardly car mode. I actually really like how that looks. And I love the way it sort of makes the parts it has work in car mode. But the epoxy thing won't stay together.
Literal Batmobile.
Yeah, but it won't stay together. It's just like the parts won't clip together or stay clipped. The alignment is wrong in the legs when you sort of fold them up over to make the back of the car. It just looked wonky as heck. And I thought, this is not enjoyable. And it didn't even look good enough to keep in that mode. But we should also mention that the Car Robots release is the only one of that mold, because the upgraded mold to Devil Gigatron with its 10 modes is what Hasbro used as Megatron and then as Galvatron.
So you can get the Megatron with the 10 modes.
Yeah,
which is something. We're just kind of going back a step then to kind of finish summarizing the line because we haven't even done that yet. But so basically Car Robots was a lot of new molds, some old molds as well. So it brought back things like G1 Bruticus, and stuff like that. Had some new combiners in there, so you got stuff like JRX and the Build Team, or Build King, and just really, really fantastic toys. Some really nice decos. Did things like Spy Changers, which were re-releases of the Generation 2 GoBots, and looking really quite fine. Lots of exclusives, as you said, Maz.
Yeah.
But then
blind box stuff, lucky draw stuff,
right.
store exclusive giveaways, just the whole rainbow spectrum of how to make a toy
the kind of
hard
stuff
to get.
20 years later is super infuriating. Those blind box Spy Changers, man, honestly, kill me.
The clear ones are the worst, aren't they?
Don't even go there, honestly. Yeah. But then you've got the R&D lineup, which is all the same toys brought over, some deco changes. So things like Skid Z looks, very different to how it did in Car Robots. Different decos and things. But then they took all of that, made changes, like they put Autobot logos where there had been no Autobot logos. So one thing that's very consistent in Car Robots is that none of the car modes have prominent Autobot logos on them.
Not even the Spy Changes.
Not even the Spy Changes, which all have Autobot logos added on in RID. So they obviously wanted it to be much more prominently. Maybe that's in theme with the packaging, actually. They wanted it to be much more
but then you've got
Transformers.
The Build Team has a very obvious Autobot logo on Build Boy's chest, on Wedge's chest.
Yeah, it's true.
Super prominent. And then it's mega prominent on the combiner.
The combine mode. It's funny because actually Landfill or the Build Team, they're the ones that to me always feel like an odd duck in terms of that line. Like they, even compared to JRX, they feel like a strange, they could be a vintage mold. At that point they could be a G1 or G2 mold or something that's been brought over, but they're not. They're wholly original design, but without the articulation and stuff that some of the other toys have. They've got a bit, obviously, but
it's funny. I find them completely consistent with Car Robots.
Do you?
Yeah,
they always stuck out to me.
So of the line, and I love them for it because they have the chonk and playability and wicked vehicle modes that this line's original molds all have, and it doesn't feel like anything that's gone before because of that utterly wacky three-pronged combination system. That's
the bit that makes it feel super new. That's the bit that stops it feeling like a G1 or nothing in G1. Yeah, certainly, and really in G2 as well. So, and then you've got RID, which is ports all of these toys over. But then the thing with RID that is worth mentioning is the fact that it just threw in a truckload, literally, of random other molds. I mean, you have just it's hard to know where to start in terms of summarizing that, to be honest, because it's just incredible. I mean, you've got everything from unreleased stuff from G2. You've got regular G2 releases. You've got more Spy Changes by the boatload. Some that were actually unreleased molds, things like that, which is just brought back, which is incredible. You've got stuff, more stuff from G1, things from Beast Wars, so like a repaint of Transmetal 2 Megatron in blue for some reason. You've got unreleased Beast Machines toys and retail Beast Machines toys all in the line, which is all really, really bizarre. You've got just like things like Air Attack Optimus Primal in there, which is just, I mean, that definitely doesn't fit at all in terms of anything.
But even RID had some original stuff that was specific to the line, which was like the Spy Changer X-Brawn. It's like that wasn't reused from anywhere, and it didn't come out in Car Robots. It was specific to this line, and it was a new mold for Hasbro.
Yeah, it's really true. Some of those little Spy Changes that they did originally are so cool as well. I really,
First
really
time
love them.
an Optimus Prime toy has had a dedicated mold as that size class, isn't it? Like the fire engine Optimus Prime. It's the first time like a leader Optimus Prime toy has had a Legends class toy.
I would guess so. I love that they did the yellow repaint of that as well. I just think that for me is the ultimate. And some of those Spy Changes, particularly, I would say you would have a great time actually, Maz, collecting the Hasbro Spy Changes.
It's going to happen now.
I really think you would. Honestly, I could just totally see there are some great remolds, repaints, all of that, and some really niche ones as well. The little things like the little Spy Changer Ultra Magnus is just so cool.
I do want that, and the Scourge and the X-Brawn and the Prime, not the Yellow Prime. Yeah, it'll happen.
Well,
of course it will.
They even did. There's some weird ones. They even did a little Movieverse Prime repaint as well, with the flames and stuff on the truck, which I have, which was just cool stuff like that. So just very, very bizarre. So yeah, RID was just literally everything that they could think of, just throw it out there, see what sticks. And it's hard to know kind of what the strategy was beyond just like, here's some wacky repaints. But you could look at it cohesively and think this is bizarre, but actually I kind of like it. I have a lot of fun with a lot of those repaints. I think they were really successful. And one thing that I do think is universally true of both lines of the bits that they repainted, as I say, is that the repainted versions are often better than where they came from. So Skybite is the obvious one. I mean, Transmetal 2 Cybershark is beautiful, but I do prefer the Skybite repaint. The obvious ones, as I say, are the Machine Wars repaints that they brought back. So, of course, you had in Car Robots, you had Indie Heat and what's his name?
Wrecker
The
Hook.
other one, Wrecker Hook. Thank you. I can never remember his Japanese name.
Or the mystery machine, as every single person who comments on social media feels the need to point out.
Yes, it's true.
Yes,
you do get a lot of that. It doesn't bother me.
Green and purple.
You do seem to get a lot of that. You do seem to get a lot of that. But then what was fascinating was that then in RID they repackaged those as 2-packs, and they brought back some of the jet modes from Machine Wars as well. So what had been like Megatron and Megaplex and things like that, and made them into like Wind Shear and stuff. And actually those repaints I think are super cool. Honestly, like Wind Shear and Skyfire, the other one, just looks so much better. They blow their Machine Wars counterparts out of the water in terms of how nice they are. Are they those repaints? That's not something you'd ever consider, though, is it, Matt?
Oh, it is, because now that I've got the exclusive versions of Wrecker Hook and Indie Heat, I would like to have the regular Hasbro version of Skid Z, because it's different and it doesn't have the dodgy rear wing that every single Car Robots Indie Heat has. It's just a twisted mold. It's a flip changer, which is an Indy car. And if you look at it head on, the rear wing is completely bent. And it's like that in a sealed package. And I've confirmed this with a number of collectors. Even the exclusive blue one is like that. And they corrected that for the flip changer that came out in RID. And I'd love to have one which is perfectly aligned.
Do you know, I have the blue one. And actually, I think you're right. It does have it. I'm just trying to remember the last time I transformed it. But I remember getting it and thinking, oh, this is quite tough. For a flip changer, it's quite hard to activate. It's a little bit nerve-wracking, particularly as it's clear plastic.
It's just that arm that leads up to the rear wing is twisted. And it's a bit of a shame because it looks really rubbish in photos. And it's really hard to angle the toy to make it not look like you've done something wrong in the transformation.
Dare I say, I actually think the Skid Z colour scheme is a little bit nicer. But that's me.
I like it because the Indie Heat one it's show accurate, and it's actually got the racing number on the nose cone of the car, which is cool.
Yeah, they both got their merit for sure. I just I don't know. I sort of took a view on it, and I was like, for me, I know you've gone full Car Robots. I was like, I'll just pick a bit of both. Do you know what I mean?
I think that's the most sensible way to collect it. Because, for example, how long did it take me to get Gelshark, the Japanese Skybite? It took me ages to find a nice one. I could have just picked up an RID one and been done with it in a week.
Yeah, it's super accessible. But you had to have that cardboard.
Oh, I couldn't be happier now that I do.
There you go. It's very important, I'm sure.
Liam was just going on at me. He was like, you've got to get this Skybite. You've got to get this Skybite.
That was it, yeah. Got to make sure. You need that cardboard.
Do you still have one?
What, the vintage Skybite?
Yeah.
No. This one I'd like to get, but I can't find it for a reasonable price. It's quite hard to find, the RID Skybite.
All the while stepping over reasonably priced landfills there. Just, 10 a penny.
Send me a link.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Send you a link. Good Lord. Send me a link.
Do you know, I thought I'd hate Skybite. I really did. I was afraid it was going to be exactly the same experience as Megatron. And this is like a Transmetal 2 toy. It's fantastic. It's just brilliant. It's a really tricky transformation. Those wings pop off every time. But it's lovely in both modes. And it's not opposable shark by any stretch. It's molded in a banana shape. But it's just wicked. It's gorgeous. Never seen a toy painted so beautifully in a mainline.
But do you know, that's the thing for me, is that it's not I was a bit nervous that you weren't going to like it, actually, just after your experience with Gigatron or whatever. But I was so pleased when you got it and that you were like, yeah, I love it. because it's a real favourite of mine. And I do think that the paint and the finish and the attention to detail on all the little wires and little mechanical detailing along the sides of the shark, and the kind of mismatched asymmetric pattern in the robot mode and things like that. It's definitely one of the nicest looking in-hand toys that I own, for sure.
Yeah, it's right. There's something everyone should see in hand. It's quite breathtaking.
Yeah, I would agree.
Build teams for landfill! Combine! Quad power combiner mode!
Okay, so it feels a bit like we've kind of jumped around all over the place and talked about lots of stuff already, but let's get into some of the detail of specific toys. And the obvious one to talk about first is, of course, Superfire Convoy, or Optimus Prime, as many people will refer to him. And, it's a toy that we all love, isn't it? We have talked a bit about this toy on a number of occasions previously, but it bears repeating because I think it's just a timeless classic, no?
It's one of the great toys, isn't it?
I think so. Yeah, it's funnily enough not a toy that I knew back in the day personally. It wasn't one that I had at the time, but I've loved discovering it since. Really, really have.
No, it's an absolute classic. I had it at the time, and like I was saying earlier, just getting it back again I can't believe I sold it in the first place, because everything about it ticks every possible box for me. It's such an amazing toy to play with, and it's just everything about it. Like it's got a base mode almost. It's got everything.
Yeah, there's something about the fire engine mode that is just one of the most fun to hold transformation. It's so big. It's ridiculous. It feels like a scale model fire engine almost. It's so good.
So much functionality as well.
Yeah,
great
with
sounds.
The ladder and really, really cool.
It was, in my opinion, a wonderful reimagining of Power Master Optimus Prime. Is what that toy felt like when I got it recently. It's not even been a year since I first experienced it. First of all, look at that thing landing in the year 2000. I mean, I can't even imagine what that must have been like for most people to get that at the time on import. How exciting that must have been at that time in the year 2000.
Seeing something so different.
So different. So you've got the core robot, which is like the Optimus Prime cab, and you've got the super robot mode where you detach everything else and clobber it together like Lego to create a super robot, which then combines with another dude, God Bomber, to make a super robot. And then you've got the vehicle mode, which it can function as a cab by itself with a little gun.
The little gun, yeah.
Or you can attach it to make a bigger truck mode. And then, of course, you can have a passable base mode. It's just Power Master Prime updated and made even better.
Yeah. I can see that. I didn't know that little gun Reliant Robin thing. I think it was either during one of these episodes or in a recent discussion online somewhere. I can't remember.
Yeah,
maybe in Triple Takeover. But I remember that being said, and I was like, really? And it's fantastic. I love it. But it was just a feature that teaches you, doesn't it, to sometimes read the blooming instructions. It's a good idea to do. But yeah, it's cracking.
One of the amazing things about it, though, there's no pretense that it's anything other than a toy. Like in this day and age, we're so used to whatever toy line comes out, it's trying to achieve something else. Whereas with this toy, the plastic is so thick, it's got sound features, rockets, everything about it. It's just this massive toy that is designed to be played with, but it has all the bells and whistles like rubber tires and clear windows, everything like that.
Chrome.
It feels like someone tried to make the absolute best toy. They were just having a great time with it, and that was their only remit. Make a fantastic.
And they just had to let go of the fact that Optimus Prime had to be a truck. Just like make a fire engine.
Actually, the fire engine thing, I think, is pretty universally accepted from what I see. Anyway, not in the same way as Optimus being a monkey. It's not not so controversial.
PlayStation.
Exactly. I don't see many people being like, "Oh, they made him a fire truck." What? There's not a lot of that. It's pretty loved, and I think if you're going to do
years of monkey, they would have taken him as a dump truck,
right? Maybe.
At that point.
I think it'd be a very cool dump truck. That new Smash Changer thing looks like a dump truck, and I think great. It's a pretty cool design.
Looks pretty complex though.
Don't see all of that. Honestly, that whole malarkey. I was laughing away reading that. Honestly.
Amazing, actually. Do you remember I told you that story about the Gumtree advert I found for RID Optimus Prime, where the dad was like, "This is my son's Optimus Prime toy. We simply can't figure it out.
Right.
sold as is. So, oh yeah, so that was better then.
Yeah, right. Exactly. It's what, as you say, what a take, what a numpty. But hey ho. But yeah, I think the fire truck thing, a lot of it. I don't know. It's a great mode for him, and obviously they carried it forward into animated, which I really like. Which I think is super cool. I would love to see more Optimus fire trucks now. Actually, the Galaxy Force and that did it as well, didn't they? Cybertron.
And they tend to be the best looking Optimus vehicle modes that
Really
you
do.
simply can't wait to get your hands on and play with. And man, this toy qualifies for that.
And it was Optimus Prime coming back as well. So at that time, I know there was Truck Not Monkey, so in the fandom it was different. But and as a wider sort of world, seeing Optimus Prime again as a fire truck wasn't as like shocking because he wasn't. He was iconic, but he wasn't iconic as he is now, where pretty much everyone in the world knows what Optimus Prime, and it's been drilled into you that he has a very specific iconography. Whereas back then, it was wow, it's Optimus Prime. It's a red truck of some description, and that's Optimus Prime as well.
Yeah, there was a lot of close enough about it, wasn't there? That it was nostalgic enough to kind of capture the imagination while still being something new. But yeah, I do think it's really cool. I actually really love the inner robot mode.
It's great. It really is.
It's a real favourite of mine. I just think it's so much fun to pose.
Yep. Even with his dancing shoes, it looks amazing.
Yeah, it does have a bit of
that cool head as well with the antenna, like the curvy antenna that look like
really nice,
little bananas rather than sort of spikes.
Yeah, it's got all the right hallmarks for being an Optimus design, even down to like the chest windows and stuff like that. But it's still entirely new, and I really like it for that. And I think it feels like it's from a time where there was a real sense of creativity around it, around what they were going to do with this, that isn't always prevalent today, at a risk of saying it. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I really admire it for that.
And nothing about it, or rather everything about it, tells you that this guy is the leader. When you put him in robot mode and you make Super Fire Convoy, no doubt who the boss is.
Yeah. Scale
aside, I mean, he's bigger than 3 trains combined, but it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
That's another thing. Scale in this line, not so much. But Shark bigger than car. But it doesn't matter, and that's how
he's a marquee toy, isn't he?
Yes,
yeah, it really is.
He is a point in history for this toy line.
Yeah,
it does get anywhere near as much credit as it deserves on a wider scale.
I think the one thing that did surprise me about it initially was that there wasn't more articulation in the super robot mode. That was I did, even down to the hands and things like that. I think I imagined that there would be a little bit more. And like the legs, obviously you can't really pose the legs without massively having the feet at an angle. Do you know what I mean? Like not so, there's no ankle tilt or anything. Not that you would anticipate there would be ankle tilt on a toy from that time. If it was modern, there probably would be. But I don't know. It just adds up a little bit to kind of make him. He looks better static, I think.
But they're so good, such good-looking toys with excellent proportions and so much show accuracy that I think people look back on them and they're surprised that these toys don't have those features, and they forget that it's from the year 2000, a mere 6 years after Laser Prime was being called the most articulated Transformer ever, and then you realize you can't even turn his legs outwards. Because Laser Prime was talked about as the greatest thing, and he can't turn his legs out. You've got to have him at some funny, weird angle to make him look dynamic. But then,
I guess it was because it was coming off the back of Beast Wars, Beast Machines, where everything was super articulated. Do you know what I mean? Or certainly most stuff was, so that you could get a real sense of posability. I mean, posability in Beast Wars was just. It's like the de facto thing, everything.
You can see it in the Car Brothers,
Yeah, exactly. And the Car Brothers are the same. So it wasn't that Optimus wasn't posable in the super mode. It was just that there were kind of compromises to the posability because of the armor and things like that. That just, I don't know. I remember the first time I experienced it, I was like, it wasn't a disappointment, but it was like okay, this is a bit different. Do you know what I mean? But actually, what I've really kind of come to with that mold, Convoy, Optimus, whatever, is that it doesn't need it actually, because the super mode is so impressive that who cares?
But he can do the whole action pose with the ladder over his shoulder, which is great.
Liam's picture of it is superb.
I love doing that. It's so much fun,
and it does it convincingly.
Yeah, and it holds it as well. It's not like even if that toy's so heavy and you'd think it would topple, but it doesn't. It can do it because the joints are so strong. But what you're saying about posability is right. But at that time, I just remember being so enamored with it. Like I was like, wow, it can do this. It's fantastic. Because because the blocky shapes, it's a truck that can do that versus like with the animal ones, like the Beast Wars, they're very much more organic, aren't they? They sort of lend themselves like that. So it was quite amazing for me. I think the first time I saw that toy, I'm like, wow. Particularly going from Ultra Magnus, RID Ultra Magnus, which is the polar opposite of that.
Yeah, there are a couple of differences as well between the two versions. Because Maz, you've got the Car Robots one, so
Correct. Yeah.
of course it doesn't have
Sparkly plastic.
Yeah, slightly different sort of look to the red plastic, I think. But also the kind of key difference, is about the launches in the ladder. Did you know this?
The one that it's like a staggered launch that you can do for the launch for the missiles.
So on the Car Robots one, you kind of press the button and the things all flip forward and it fires all in kind of one go. Whereas on the American one, you can literally fire each one individually.
I think you can stagger them on the Car Robots one too. Just depends how hard you press the button. It kind of will do it in stages.
I always thought that was the difference between the two. I always thought they were.
No, I hadn't noticed it. But then I haven't even put too much time into playing with the missiles because they're potent and they
firing them around a lot. Yeah.
Another thing is the chest chrome is gradiented on the Car Robots version. So
is that right?
The red chrome that's around the windows on his chest, it sort of goes from red to orange, but it doesn't have that look on the Hasbro version.
No, it's just plain red, sort of block red or whatever on the Hasbro version for sure. So
that's a real big spot of wear actually on the toy, is the chrome around that section.
Well, yeah, absolutely. I had the Hasbro version for a good few years, and the chrome was always really nice. But I have to say, actually, one thing that I do really like is the Encore version, the Japanese Encore version, which is worth talking about because it's an unfortunate reissue, and lots of people really were hanging on for that thing and were dead excited about it, and it was a bit of a damp squib because it had numerous quality control problems. I mean, a lot, let's say, to the point where Takara Tomy eventually even offered a recall for it, which I think was in relation to some of the sound features, the sound chips, which weren't working. And to be fair, I'm not too worried about the sound chip. I mean, I have the Encore reissue, and fortunately my copy seems all good. But the one thing I will say for the reissue, problems aside, is that the color changes that they made is really nice. Really,
it's the white, lovely. Isn't it? Instead of the cream, the off-white cream of the vintage.
Yeah.
And the red as well.
Striking difference. The red is really striking.
Red is really nice.
Yeah, it's got there's no chrome on the chest as such. It's silver paint with like just a block red on the chest. And it does look really, really good. The blue is darker, so it contrasts a bit more with the red. That's really lovely. Just some of the paint applications are a bit brighter. The eyes are brighter.
Oh, the eyes different.
Yeah,
the eyes are different color on the Core Robot.
The Core Robot, the eyes on the Core Robot, and
they're blue on the reissue, aren't they?
No. They're still but they're kind of
color.
like a burnt yellow, whereas on the original they're kind of gold. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's slightly different. I think the blue and the white are the most noticeable differences. Even the grey is a little bit changed. It's kind of like a darker grey. It just adds up and just makes him look really, really very striking, I think. Even the window tint is slightly different, stuff like that. So it's like they took what was already a really good color scheme and just really enhanced it, in my opinion. And Magnus is the same, honestly. Just the blue is so nice, the whites are nice. It doesn't have that off-white. And trying to find a non-yellowed.
How many did I link you to?
Magnus.
Sixo is this yellowed, Sixo is that one yellowed. In the end, you just had to go for it. No, they are actually off-white.
That was the Triple Takeover chat for a long time, wasn't it? Does this look yellow to you?
It's so hard to pick one.
Pretty sure I replied to at least one link without even looking at it, just going, "Yeah, she might be yellowed, mate. I'm sure." It was by the dozen. I was like, "Oh my god."
NK Skyfire, I remember that.
Same thing.
Yeah, it really
just got to go for it in the end because they just come out that way in photos, but in hand, it's a different story.
It's horrible having that doubt, though, isn't it?
Yes,
with the yellowing.
It really is.
The thing is, obviously, I broke my Magnus when I first got it with the Godfire convoy mode, the Omega Prime, and you think, okay, there's loads of them out there, but that was an expensive purchase that is not one you want to replace. It's not like a vintage G1 boxed figure price range at all, but you're still like, well, I don't want to have to pay £60-70 again. That's that whole thing about looking after the toys and reading the instructions. And it's funny, when I broke it, people then piped up and said, yeah, I've got the Takara version and I damaged mine that way too. So there were QC faults with the 2000 line that Takara put out that Hasbro then fixed for the year later. and that's worth noting. And one of them is, I think, the Magnus head flip for the big robot head to come out.
That's true.
And of course, Indie Heat that we talked about with the dodgy spoiler.
Fair play to Hasbro, actually, just as a kind of general point before we come back to Magnus and stuff. But it worth acknowledging what a level of effort they went to at the time, actually, because they could have just as easily imported this stuff as it was, no color scheme changes, no nothing, just plonked it out on shelves. There you go, job's done. See you later. See you next year for Armada, and they'd have been fine. But they didn't. They actually seemingly paid quite a lot of attention to quite a lot of it. And I think it's I don't know. It's not the kind of reputation that Hasbro always get, is it? When
they took away the clear plastic joints of JRX and gave Rail Racer non-clear plastic, so you don't get the beautiful see-through windows of the trains, but you also don't get a disintegrating combiner.
Right. And it's funny because actually I have both versions of that toy now. And although, yes, the trains and everything do look lovely on the Car Robots version, it's actually the Sonicon version that I have. It used to be yours, M.A.S.K, of course.
Right.
But it's beautiful, absolutely very striking. But there is something about playing with the the block non-clear plastic versions that Hasbro put out they still look really nice. They don't look the same, but they look really nice.
They are gorgeous, though. It's just a gorgeous toy, full stop.
Yeah, fantastic. So, all credit to Hasbro. I think they often get a bad rep for how they approach repaints and stuff, or have done historically, not so much now, of course. But I think they really did a great job with RID.
Yeah, they made the toys durable.
Yeah.
They made them their own as well. I think that's one of the things we're talking about here, isn't it? Is that they're similar, but they're separate, and they do have their own personality as a result. Like you're saying, with the bigger logos and different colours and things.
Yeah.
I love their packaging as well. Just Magnus and Prime in their boxes, and even those trains in those cavernous boxes, they look great in the Hasbro packaging.
Yeah. And the Car Brothers on the car, the big bubbles and the cars. Yeah. It's just amazing.
Those were the first molds I ever got of this line. Were the Hasbro Prowl, X-Brawn, and Sideburn. That was my first experience of the line. Yeah, but we'll come to that. Before we do, just want to say a bit more on this Prime. That Prime is the only one in the Car Robots packaging that comes in the window box, and it's so attractive in that window box that I've often considered buying another one just to have in the box. And mine regularly goes back into the box because it looks so divine in the packaging. But then I'll get it out because it's one of the most enjoyable toys to play with. It's just there's never a lack of wow when you clip all the parts on to make Superfire Convoy. And you can't go from truck to Superfire Convoy without stopping at the core robot mode as well. It's so good. It's just one of the best Transformers toys ever.
It would be almost impossible, wouldn't it, to just go straight from vehicle to super mode?
Yeah, but I mean, like, you stop and you put the core robot on the table, give him
definitely.
Put the gun in his hands, like, yeah, this is beautiful. Now for the super mode. It's just super fun.
You're going to get a yellow version?
I am. I'm trying very hard. I would... Back when I wasn't a collector of this line, that Sam's Club yellow RID Optimus was a thing I considered buying. And I remember when it was uncool and it was uninteresting and it was cheap.
It's another Shining Magnus, isn't it? It's another.
It's exactly that.
I bought it at a time. I know there was no information about it. No one gave a stuff about it. It hadn't really come up in fiction or whatever. Do you know what I mean? I don't know, but I remember seeing it, and I had seen it before, but many years ago, and I saw it come up, and it was a lot with the Magnus, the Sam's Club Magnus, and the two of them together, and it was just so funny because I bought it and was like, yeah, that's a really cool thing. I really want it, and it was, dare I say, quite cheap actually. Whereas now I see the prices. It's changed so much. It's become a real object of desire almost overnight. And actually, the Magnus is really nice as well. It's just it's not as striking a change on the Magnus as it is on the Prime. That's the thing.
No,
because the Prime is
it's not better looking than the original color Magnus. Whereas the Prime, you could argue, Superfire Convoy Optimus Prime in yellow is just scintillating to look at.
It's funny, the yellow, actually, my boy loves that mold. So he's a big fan of Optimus. But it's the yellow one that he really likes. Yep. He really likes the yellow one. He has actually. So when I was collecting all the spy changers, I got the little yellow Optimus Prime spy changer one. And he was so excited about it. I ended up giving him that one and the I think it's Prowl that comes with it. I gave him those two. And I ended up buying another one, and he's still got them, and he plays with them all the time. If ever there's we're talking about, can we look at a Transformer or whatever from my collection? Regularly, the yellow Optimus is the one that he wants to see.
So in fiction, that was cast as a female eventually, wasn't it? A Supreme Convoy or something like that. Is it called Supreme Convoy?
Yellow Splendid
Splendid
Convoy.
Yeah.
It's actually had a couple of iterations because it was also sort of used or repurposed as Shotimus Prime. A sort of souped up version of Hotshot if he'd got the Matrix and everything. That was a thing. But then they turned it into Yellow Splendid Convoy. But it's really kind of caught everybody's attention more recently, I think.
Can I just go back to this Shotimus Prime? Did I hear that right? Was that a real thing you just said?
Yep. Shotimus Prime, definitely.
Oh my god, that is my new favourite name. It's like I'm now picturing like this gangster rap Optimus Prime just going around.
Yeah, it's actually considered to be like a representation of Hotshot, from Armada and Energon and everything, as like the Matrix bearer, if you will. So a lot of people refer to it as Shotimus Prime. So if ever you post pictures of it, you get lots of things. You get that's gorgeous. You get it's Shotimus Prime. You get it's Yellow Splendid Convoy. You get female Optimus. All of that. So
I bet he or she doesn't get any comments like poor shining man.
Right? No, definitely not.
No, too good for that.
I mentioned that my boy loves that toy. And I remember the first time we were playing with it, and I actually said to him, and he said, "Who is it?" and all this. I said, "Oh, it's Optimus Prime." And I said, "But it's actually a lady Optimus Prime." And literally looked at me and just went, "Huh, okay." And that was it. And then ever since then, it's just been she and whatever else.
Yeah, imagine how enjoyable a hobby like this could be without years of baggage.
Right, exactly. It was like no big deal. Do you know what I mean? He doesn't care. He's like, great. So it's a lady Optimus Prime. Doesn't need explanation. Doesn't need. Yeah, it's splendid. Exactly.
Delightful Optimus Prime.
And I don't know. It just makes you realise that that's how it should be, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a real shot in the arm.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. Very good. But no, I would recommend that one. Honestly, I think I do prefer it.
Rim shot. I'll stop. I won't. I'll say it.
Please do. Yeah. But no, I think I do prefer it to the regular Optimus. You should get one.
I'll just put it in with Brave Max.
Right, yeah. Exactly.
Shipped together, yeah.
Yeah, just all in one job lot. Why not?
Decepticons, combine! Yes, sir! Nation awakens!
Well, let's talk a bit about Magnus then, because we kind of touched on him briefly. Liam, you've obviously still got your vintage Magnus. Would you get a new one day? Or?
Yeah, I'd like to go for it again because it's another one I didn't like at the time. Like, I love the truck mode. I think it's fantastic, but the robot mode it felt so complex to get to something that didn't really do much. It's got these really long legs that don't move. Yeah,
high-waisted trousers.
It just felt so opposite to the Car Brothers and
Liam for opposing opinions.
Here we go. Johnny come lately on the RID train. Just got the JRX.
The apologist.
Yeah.
Oh no, now he's Mr. Car Robots, isn't he?
I know, look at him.
But do you know, I think your opinion is a very common one. Because for all the talk that Superfire Convoy has had down the years, I haven't heard it about Magnus, and it's just everyone loves that truck mode. Everyone loves it, and it's one of the most attractive looking vehicle modes ever seen on a Transformer. But there wasn't hearing anything about the robot mode.
It's so disappointing though, because when you see that toy in the box, it looks incredible, and you take it out, and it's at that time it felt like a saga because Transformers in general hadn't been that complex, and there are so many parts that come off and flip round and stuff, and then you get there and it's like, oh, he's got wavy arms, that's all right, but then it looks like he's got these giant legs and they don't move, and it's
couldn't disagree more with you. I made that robot for the first time and I was in heaven. I was like, this is tremendous. It's perfect.
But that's what I was going to say next. Like, when I see it as an adult now, I appreciate it more. I look at it and go, wow, it looks cool.
Yeah.
But then it was like, what have they done here?
That I can relate to.
Into this.
Yes.
I think I was a bit the same, to be honest, as Liam, though, because I seem to recall, I had it. It was one of the ones that I had back in the day, and I recall being like, whoa, those are some legs, man. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's a lot. That's like a lot to take in. And
also Magnus.
Right, sure. Yeah. Take your shot. But it was a lot to kind of accept at the time, in terms of like, this is a pretty wacky robot mode, the proportions and all. And but also it is different now collecting these toys to what it was at the time. I mean, some of the transformations, and Magnus is one. Funnily enough, it came up in conversation today. I posted a picture of it, and an old llama god replied on Twitter and said that he had hellish memories of transforming it. I think he described it, the memory of it, as like rocking in a corner. That kind of feeling of it, and I can appreciate that, because it was a toy that felt like a sort of new leap in terms of transformational complexity at the time. And now, it's like no big deal really, but it was a different story in 2001.
Yeah. It's original now. It's wow. What am I doing with those plates on his back? You pull them out, you rotate them in, and
that's like
it's just fantastic. He's
bizarre.
So interesting. He's
really
so
interesting. But you're seeing it in a post MP36 world. Do you know what I mean? Of like, the levels have moved on, haven't they? The
conditioned to it now, aren't
about
we?
it. Yeah, exactly.
But this toy line set a standard. I remember Sideburn, Speedbreaker, being like, "This is no toy should be like this. What? This isn't Transformers. This is
100%.
This is too complex." And now pick up Sideburn is like, "This is fantastic. This is so fun."
Well, there's muscle memory, isn't there? There's like Sideburn is one. I think that it's the waist twist, the half waist twist is done now intuitively by muscle memory, because of so many years of just doing it. There we go, half waist twist. There we go, round there, bend the arm round, all of that. Whereas at the time, it was like internal screaming. It was just it was incredible.
And the kibble of the wings, just like
Yeah, I think a lot of these toys like Magnus have benefited from now being vintage toys, because you look back at them you look at them in a completely different light to what you did then it was brand new, and it was like the same with Megatron. It was like, why is this? Like, I'm so used to picking up a Datsun or G1, them sort of toys, and being able to just go. Whereas with these, there was no, even with Beast Wars, you saw, because it's an animal, you knew where parts would have to end up. But with some of these, you were like, I can't figure this out at all. But even when you did, it was just getting to that point. It was like, man, you'd seen the Car Brothers and Optimus Prime and what they could do articulation wise, and you got Ultra Magnus, and he's just got these legs that don't really do anything, and then this really tiny upper body with wavy arms. And it's a shame, because in the cartoon he looks really cool. It just doesn't carry over to the toy. But again, looking back now, it's like, wow, that's a cool looking robot.
He's another one that I think poses best in a static pose for me. Just standing there looking rock solid cool. That's all he needs to do. I think as soon as you try and articulate the legs, the issues in the proportions kind of become a little bit more obvious.
He's got one of the coolest weapons as well. It's so fun to go through all the different permutations of the way that gun can be on his left shoulder, right shoulder, underslung, overslung, on his back. It's brilliant. And even the little laser sight that pops up is brilliant.
Laser sight's cool.
Serious rockets.
Yeah, and one of his greatest strengths is also one of his biggest weaknesses when you were back then, which is the combined form, which is fantastic. But the first time you transformed that toy, then it was so confusing with all those extra parts. You know, the way his arms, with the hands, because they unfold, and you're like, well, I'm not sure which way it's going. And I remember that at the time, it was like internal screaming again, like, I just can't wrap my head around it at the time. Whereas now it'd be like, we're so conditioned to it with more complex toys.
Definitely.
It's not.
100% think that's true. I particularly not having Optimus at the time, so never making the combined mode at the time, just having Magnus. I remember the red bits confused me, so the bits that fold up from the sides to become Omega Prime shoulder pads or whatever. Right. That I was like, what is this about? You know, and equally with combiners, for want of a better term, combiners. At the time, you weren't really used to having so much of it being integrated, really, were you? I mean, even like the combiners that they'd had in Beast Wars, that had been a thing, but that was just two of them. But from G1, you would have had add-on fists and things like that, and all kinds of other clobber. So seeing all those bits just there in the transformation was mad. I remember it did throw me for a loop at the time, but that vehicle mode is
spectacular, utterly spectacular.
It's always been attractive. Always been like, I'd love to get my hands on that, and then it was, I'd love to photograph it. And now, as an adult collector who has come to Omega Prime, just a year ago, I had the instruction sheet all laid out on the two robots, and I found it really easy to follow. because there's just been so much other guff since then that has set a new bar in frustration and incomprehensible instructions, that this was actually extremely fun right up until the last moment where I had to flip over his head and I
it's a shame.
broke it. But that's a past memory now. It's been fixed, so it's brilliant. I love it, and I love how it looks as super mode. Really reminds me of that Fans Hobby Naval Commander, just the whole Armada Prime super mode thing. It's definitely a thing, and it really starts here nicely.
Oh man, they could do an amazing Omega Prime if they wanted to. They could do a real thing.
Oh, the
with that.
Fans Hobby Lobby are back.
Yeah, we go.
You know what? If that fan poll for MP23 had turned out differently,
oh man,
and we had got on a Masterpiece Superfire Convoy, I mean, things could have been very different.
It would have changed the Masterpiece line considerably. I think in a way, the fact that Star Saber was still G1 meant that it could kind of be a one and done thing. Do you know what I mean? Whereas I think if it had been a Car Robots release or some of the others as well, maybe, but I think particularly the Superfire Convoy, it would have been a real change.
I think today Star Saber would never have won that poll today. I think Power Master Prime would have won that poll today.
Maybe.
Or Jinrai, God Jinrai.
Maybe.
Do you think something like RID Prime would benefit from a Masterpiece? Like, I was thinking about this earlier. Like, something I wanted to bring up is I look at that toy and it's so close to perfect. Where I think it just needs like an ankle tilt. It's like tiny little
same
bits.
Same as JRX. All it needs is an ankle tilt.
Whereas something like a Masterpiece or a third party one feels like it would have to be so different. And I don't know if it would be if it needs it. If that makes sense. Like, I don't think they would just add the tiny bits it needs.
Yeah, it's what we've said before, isn't it? About the fact that because those original toys are so show accurate, that actually new versions, what are they going to do really? And they're already super articulated, so it's very difficult to know. I think it is just that bit of additional engineering, isn't it? That just means that I don't know. To me, it could be almost like the difference between Siege Prime and the 3.0 version. In that they look the same. They both emulate the cartoon, or rather the cartoon emulates the one or whatever, but still you get more articulation in the other, and it makes it a different prospect, and the finish is better and everything else. So maybe there's that aspect to it, and I think there still would be a lot of appetite to see some of those Car Robots designs given Masterpiece treatment or New Generations toys or whatever. But I think if it was Generations, I'd personally rather see them just do something new with it. Make him a fire truck, have all the right cues there, so you're like, okay, yes, this is Car Robots Superfire Convoy or RID Optimus or whatever, but just give it a bit of new flavour as well.
They kind of went halfway there with that Magnus recently, didn't they? Where his truck mode is a kind of a callback to, and yet it is not even 50% as attractive as God Magnus or RID Ultra Magnus's vehicle mode. It just doesn't compel you to play with it in that fashion that RID one does.
Doesn't hold a car either. That's kind of a...
Does it not? Oh my god. That, for me, is just the best thing about RID Magnus, is just seeing it with the three brothers on the back is just sublime. Absolutely sublime. And the fold down ramp and everything. It's as joyous as G1 Ultra Magnus was back in 1980, whatever. Do you know what I mean? It's as good as that. If anything, because of the sort of relative look at the car modes and how great they are and whatever, I'd say maybe even more of a thrill. I don't know. Like it's a real collecting highlight for me, that vehicle mode.
And Godfire Convoy is just majestic.
Yeah, it's pretty good. As combined prime modes go, I do really like it. So big old sword, which is super satisfying. Yeah.
Shame it's so hard to get it with the sword, but of course now with the reissue you can get that.
Yeah.
But,
yeah, I do. I have the massive sword with the reissue.
It is mad how many of those vintage Godfire Convoy gift sets from Toys R Us Japan are yellowed. It's virtually impossible to find one where the clear plastic hasn't yellowed on the Magnus.
Yeah.
I think it's because so many of them are water damaged. All the boxes are wrecked, water damaged boxes, and it must have come from a big batch where they were in stock and damaged. I'd love to see one that's not yellowed today though, and I haven't seen one.
Well, fingers crossed. I have one. I have one in my possession already, as you know, which I think actually I would say is a little bit yellowed, but it's a real tough one because in some lights you look at it and honestly it looks absolutely fine. Like you would think it is not yellowed, but then in other lights, and actually in the room I'm in now, it looks more yellowed than in like my living room, for example. It's just one of those. And for the longest time, I kept like looking at it going, is it yellowed? Is it not yellowed? Is it yellowed? But it was always that kind of nagging doubt. And so I do have another one on the way. Why not?
Of that I'm aware.
Yes, I know you know. And quietly confident that this one is going to be...
It's better.
It's going to be better.
Yeah. I looked at that and thought, look, no water damage on the box.
Yeah.
And lo and behold, the Magnus inside was less yellow than I've ever seen one.
Yeah, and I think it's when you compare it to stuff like some of the clear spy changes and things like that, you can see there's just that slight, difference. Even if it doesn't look yellow as such, when you look at it in isolation, you could almost convince yourself it's fine. But it's just when you compare it with those spy changes, it's sort of a bit more obvious maybe. So we'll see how the new one goes, but fingers crossed, and then I'll move the other one on pretty quickly.
The Transformers will return after these messages.
Okay, well, it's that time of the episode where we're going to talk about our sponsors. Are we at the midway point? I don't even think we know at this point. We're just kind of so engrossed in the old car robots chatter. But let's have a look at our sponsors all the same. So, of course, first up, we've got tfsource.com. We've got tons of Transformers and third-party toys up there. So as ever, we're going to take a quick look at their website and just see what's up for pre-order or what's in stock and maybe catching our fancy. I don't know about you, gents, but have you seen what's in new arrivals there?
Yes, I was just waiting for you to say it.
Right. So there is the old, what's it called? MPL-01B Sharpshooter Black version. It's the old Banana Force, isn't it? And, well, it's a Car Robots Black convoy.
And they also... it was O as well,
Oh yeah,
to those guys.
That's the most important thing, obviously. But no, it's a non-transformable toy, but it does look pretty nice. Would that catch your attention?
Maybe only because it's called Banana Force.
Yeah, what a name!
This toy looks great. I don't know if you've seen John Strong's Boastful Manfish. His photos of the red version just look spectacular.
I kind of like the black one,
pretty,
because they're really showing it off in the photos, and some of the gold and paint applications look amazing. But just, I don't know, it might be my only chance to ever own a black.
That's what I'm thinking. Yeah, absolutely. And of course, it's got all the bells and whistles when it comes to posability. So
yeah,
it's quite a lot going for it, really. It's almost like the perfect thing to translate into this kind of collectible, isn't it?
Right.
Yeah.
In a funny way, I don't need it to transform either. Do you know what I mean? It's like, it's fine that it doesn't with that kind of collectible, in my opinion. So,
but it is aimed at a very specific niche in the market, though. It's like a very certain type of collector that would be interested in that particular color of that particular character when it doesn't transform and at that price point. It's really specific.
Yeah.
People who listen to Triple Takeover.
Right, exactly. May have found their niche in that one. So, but what else has caught your eyes on old tfsource.com?
His tank Megatron.
Right, yeah, of course. Yeah, just come up, hasn't it? So, you're going to get that one, Liam?
Probably. It's a bit expensive, but it's such a great idea. I can't believe it's taken them this long.
Megatron wearing a G.I. Joe coat?
Yeah, robots get cold too.
It's man in tank.
It is man in tank. It is man in tank. I love it. I think it is great. I've seen this debate back and forth so much in the last week or so about is it good or not. And honestly, I think it looks good. I don't mind that it's like a shell former. It doesn't bother me at all. But I actually quite like that it's Megatron emerging from the tank almost. I don't know. It works for me.
It has that like early 2000s style to it. It's only like the sort of comics it came from, wasn't it? Was it Devil's Due? It's got that vibe. It looks like a cool toy. It looks like a fun G.I. Joe toy. Quite simple. It doesn't look like it's overly complex or anything like that.
Definitely.
You say it looks like Megatron coming out of the tank. Doesn't it remind you of all those videos you've seen of kids who sort of get cardboard outfits of Bumblebee and they're like sitting on the pavement and then they stand up and they surprise?
I mean, maybe a bit, yeah, but so I don't know. It just looks.
Yeah, none
fun.
of this is to its detriment. That's just the energy I get from it.
Or an exploding baked potato. He's got that.
There was a really cool black digibash of it, which did look great. It was really nice. I shared it because I think it really did look awesome. So all credit. And but that said, I like the G1 take. I like that it's sort of a very G1 Megatron coming out of the tank.
And it sits a G.I. Joe figure in it. I feel like this
Baroness. Yeah.
I feel like this is the part people seem to weirdly have overlooked about this toy is that it seats a 3/4 inch figure. It's fantastic. That's just cool.
It's super cool. I'm well into it, man. I'm well into it. I hope they do more.
Yeah. Definitely.
I will be there for all of it if they do. That's what I'm going to say. I'm not a big G.I. Joe guy, but I do love some of the vehicles and all of that. And I think the figures themselves are super cool.
Jetfire Sky Striker.
Oh, man. Yeah, that would be amazing. Or a Starscream one, whatever.
Yeah.
So be well up for that. Maz, what's caught your eye?
Now, I went into the depths of the menus on TFSource, and I found the what is this? I'll get the name right of this. It's the Optimus Prime versus Megatron Classics set, the Transformers Platinum Edition. And obviously, I shared pictures of old Nerf Megatron from 2006 recently. And both of us, I think, I discovered it on Wiki, and you discovered it on Twitter, that there is a clear red version of the Classics Megatron from the Platinum set, which kind of looks a bit funny in robot mode, but in gun mode, it's just this clear red pistol, and it looks incredible. And the Prime has got a whole bunch of clear parts on it as well. And they've got that in stock. And I just think there is going to come a point where I can't resist this clear red Megatron. So I've looked into their archives a little bit, and that's definitely the thing on the site that I'd be most likely to purchase.
Oh, man, yeah. I've just seen that as well. That's like, whoa, do you know what I mean? Definitely a tempting thing.
If I don't fall down the Reboost and Masterpiece Trainbot hole first.
Yeah, right, absolutely.
Just teetering on the edge for the last couple of months now.
Get a Reboost, man. What can I say?
It's definitely on the cards.
Definitely
I have the vintage red Diaclone Reboost. It would be lovely to put next to it.
You would love it. Like, I'm not
doubting that at all. It looks great.
You would love it. You would love everything about it, I'm sure. So it's just a beautiful toy to behold, wonderfully finished, super fun to pose and articulate and all that kind of stuff. You would love it. So total recommend. Well, I think for me, there's a couple of items actually. The old 3-0, I've been on it. Made no bones about it. I'm on a real 3-0 kick of late, and the new Optimus that they've just unveiled, the what was it, the Last Night Optimus that's up there, that just looks amazing to me. I'm super into that. But also, there's a couple of things like the Unique Toys Megatron that's just come up for pre-order as well. Dead into that. I've just got there's an Alien Attack version that's just come out that I've just got in hand, so I'm interested to see how that Unique Toys version compares as well. So definitely a couple of bits there for me that are exciting from TFSource. So that's them. That's tfsource.com. Want to check them out for all your Transformers and third-party needs. And let's move on and take a look at gearforgeeks.co.uk, who, as we said earlier, is a UK-based supplier. And they do all kinds, actually, not just Transformers. They do M.A.S.K, they do He-Man. So just looking on the start of their website, they've got a couple of He-Man bits and bobs there, which you can see already. But they do also have a lot of the kind of current Generation Select stuff in stock. So they've got Black Zarek there, which looks pretty exciting. They've got Lego, all kinds of different stuff. But they also have then a secondhand section as well, don't they? So what have you guys picked out there?
Oh, mate, it's just sitting there right in front of you. It's
the Lego piano.
No. It's a RID Magnus for $17.99, missing some parts. RID Prime for $24.99, and then another RID Prime for like $39.99. These aren't going to be here by the time the episode airs.
Right.
And then next to it, you've got animated Blitzwing, and then Takara Microchange Wind Charger on the same page.
I saw that little Microchange Wind Charger. I was like, wow, that's super cool. And it's not a bad price, really, considering.
No, not for a Microchange, really?
Right,
no way,
exactly.
That is a steal.
Yeah. I'm impressed. But I think the Car Robot stuff, the RAD stuff that they've got up as well, the two Primes and the Magnus, that is also like an incredible price for those. The Magnus
assemble an Omega Prime for pittance.
Right. Literally £18 for Magnus. It needs to be bought, honestly. Liam, you should get in on that, man.
Maybe, as we may have discussed.
Right.
I'm looking at the Ram Man, the Master of the Universe Ram Man. I don't know if you've seen these, the Master Universe Origins. I think
are you not looking at Crocodiles with Arse Guns this week?
No. But no, this week I'm on Ram Man.
Yes, is it RID for you, Maz? Is that where your head's at?
It's that or the Microchange Wind Charger.
Yeah.
I mean,
do you have that? Do you have that Wind Charger?
I have a Juiced to Diaclone version of it, but that's just a pre-rub Transformer. It's just a G1 Wind Charger with an Autobot sticker on a Diaclone card. But no, I don't have it. And if you look at that chest sticker, it's the one from the box art. So it's beautiful.
It's really nice.
It's an exclusive chest sticker. that you only get with the microchange version, which is also a slightly lighter red than a lot of versions of that toy. Just can't believe it's just sitting there, $69.99. I mean, if you don't know what these go for, vintage Takara mini bots, piece of history right there. First ever wind charger toy, absolute piece of history.
Yeah, definitely. Well, hopefully enough to tempt someone. So I'm kind of into that animated Blitzwing, to be honest. I don't know. It's always been a toy that's intrigued me. I think I have handled it once, many years ago. Of all the animated toys that I had at the time or whatever, I think I did handle it once. But yeah, I don't know. There's a number of animated toys I've been looking at recently thinking, maybe.
And if you see the character in the cartoon, you will not be able to resist that toy any further.
I've seen the cartoon. Yeah, I've seen the cartoon several times over. Yeah, I know. It's very memorable. So yeah, and that's always been part of the appeal as well, is, with those toys. But yeah, maybe. We'll see. So anyway, that is gearforgeeks.co.uk. And yeah, as we say, they're up there right now. Whether they'll still be there by the time this episode airs, I don't know. But there are, if Liam hasn't bought the Magnus, you can see. But there is a RID Magnus and 2 primes up there for an amazing price. So
microchange wind charger.
And a microchange wind charger.
On the same page.
So yeah, go and check them out. Gearforgeeks.co.uk and TFsquareone.com.
Oh, before we move on.
Oh, go on.
Superfire Convoy, RID Optimus Prime, has a little seat on the old ladder, which is about Diaclone driver size, wouldn't you say? It's a nice little connection.
Yeah, it absolutely is.
The history of Transformers and
that's true.
We're on about this week.
You're just throwing that into the sponsor segment there.
There you go.
Right.
Just dropping that there.
Just dropping the old knowledge bombs. Yes, it is about the same size. Yes, absolutely. Anyway, that is Gears for Geeks.
Scales well with Asguns.
Right. I'm moving on now. It's gearforgeeks.co.uk and tfsource.com. There we go. Check them out.
We now return to the Transformers.
Okay, so let's get back into it. And although we're quite far into this episode already, we should really talk about the 3 brothers, shouldn't we? Because they are very much the kind of signature part of this line. They're like some of the most unique toys. And I don't know about you guys, but just kind of before we really get into the toys themselves, I always think that part of that and the fact that they're remembered so distinctly with this line is because those characters and those alt modes and everything have never been done again since. Would you say that's fair?
What you mean, like just Sideburn or Speedbreaker, Prowl, that particular Prowl, and
that particular Prowl. Like they're very particular to this line, aren't they? Whereas they're
3
obviously
brothers. Yeah, we've never seen that again.
Yeah, exactly. That's kind of what I mean. Like they I don't know. To me, they're always synonymous with this. Like there are other Ultra Magnuses, there are other Primes, there are other Megatrons. Even Skybite has popped up again in Cyberverse and things like that. Whereas these 3 guys, they're not the only ones, of course, Rail Racer and things, but they really feel like...
We had the Micromaster Rail Racer, didn't we, with the little rail spike and the rapid run. And
that's true.
So we kind of got that.
That's true. And there have been little like homages towards, Sideburn or Speedbreaker since and things like that. But I don't know, that toy in particular, Sideburn, just feels like the absolute poster boy of this line for me. It's like the ultimate car robots RID toy.
Yeah, these toys are all about access. It's access to this line at this price point. It's access to cars as Transformers for people who maybe didn't experience that growing up, but were into Transformers from Beast Wars. Now they get this, unless obviously they bought Machine Wars. And then it's access for people like me to Beast Wars technology through alt modes that I wanted. Yeah. And that's exactly what those toys felt like. It was an absolute revelation to see Transformers that could pose this way, transform this way, but then turn into street accurate car modes, which are gorgeous.
Yeah, and they really are gorgeous.
I remember the first time I saw them on a shelf, in Wolves, just seeing those cars for the first time, like seeing Prowl. It was so striking seeing that Lamborghini and just seeing Transformers as cars. It's just fantastic.
Yeah, and not just any cars, but like you said, a Dodge Viper, Lamborghini Diablo. They were stunning, and I still get that feeling when I see these toys in package. I'm taken back to that moment in Forbidden Planet when I saw them for the first time.
But it also feels like the last time like a mainline toy line like this did actual real vehicles, didn't it? Yeah. Because since then, like generation stuff, it's always very fictional.
Oh, but mainline, okay.
You're right.
Yeah, would you consider alternate as mainline because of the price point they were at? They were like $20 in stores.
Yeah, but they're not targeted at kids, were they? I mean, like this is like a kids' toy line, isn't it? That's what I mean. Whereas this is I think this is the last time we saw actual cars like this. I mean, we saw that Netflix Bumblebee, but in general, they're all fictionalized vehicle modes now, aren't they? Even
Yeah,
if they
unless you count movie toys.
Oh yeah, movie toys. Actually, yeah, movie
I
toys.
suppose
There
you
are
count
some
them,
movie
but yeah,
toys.
I know what you mean. This is a thing on its own. Yeah.
Yeah.
It does feel distinct somehow. There's a level of kind of accuracy to them and presentation of them that feels a little bit distinct.
Yeah. And they're complex, but not... Okay, at the time, I found Sideburn to be frustratingly complex, but it was like you say, a watershed for complexity for toys for me. But nowadays, it's an absolute pleasure, and people are still discovering things about what those toys can do, because they're basically deluxe class Transformers, and they have loads of features, stored weapons, which are car parts. I mean, just recently, you and me discovered the fact that you can actually lay Prowl's roof flat against his back.
I couldn't believe it, honestly.
By doing the hinge in the hole, and it's like, whoa, that's so intricate.
I couldn't believe that. That just changed. It was like a little nuance. It's a tiny thing, but it changes so much on that toy. And kind of how you think of it. Just the fact that the whole kind of back section clips in better.
Mm-hmm.
And I was astounded to have never known that. It really threw me for a loop, honestly.
And all the different places you can put the weapons. Like his weapons go on his arm as a double blaster, or they can go on the spoiler, or they can go on the light bar. It's fantastic how playable these really small toys are.
But without being covered in loads of portholes and things like that.
Yes.
It's got that kind of clever intent to it, but still just really sleek design. I don't know.
That's a really good point about those portholes. I mean, that's something that Arms Micron was savage for that, with I'm thinking of the white wheeljack Arms Micron, with you could put the thing on top of the hood, but it just had this gaping big hole on it. So yeah, it really is clever the way it achieves that.
Yeah, it's super good. And the car modes are just spectacular. I mean, I still now, if I line up those guys for photographs or whatever, they're some of my favorite toys to take picture of in car mode. More in a way, or certainly on a par with like Masterpiece or anything like that. Because honestly, like I think actually even kind of the size of them, you can put them next to some of the Masterpiece cars, and they're not far off in terms of what they're trying to achieve or anything like that, like how realistic they are to the actual cars, things like that. They're just superb from every angle.
Opening doors, opening hood.
Absolutely amazing. All three of them. Absolutely love them. And just such idiosyncratic designs as well, just the way that they transform. In a way, I think that Macula Prowl is the most accessible of the three, just because he feels the most traditional. Like it's the least, it's the most symmetric design, looks the most traditional in his robot form in some ways. And I think he's kind of the easiest one to get along with generally. Whereas
if you don't break the hinge on the door first time you open it, clear
definitely.
plastic hinge, just went on mine straight out the package last year. And I think my that super repaint of Prowl.
Yeah, it's gorgeous.
Goodness me.
It's gorgeous.
What a step up.
One of the most beautiful repaints ever, because it's the Streets of Rage police car.
It's amazing, that little tidbit. It's just amazing.
It was when we were talking about it, and I was like looking at the pictures of it again, and I was saying, I've always thought that's what it was, but then it's amazing how it lines up. Like every detail pretty much is exactly the same, and it's like, wow, whoever designed this obviously played that game, and that's where it comes from.
That's
and it's
incredible.
Just beautiful, beautiful colours.
Can you imagine the dude designing this or painting up and listening to Yuzo Koshiro music on his headphones from Streets of Rage 2?
Can you imagine when he got the first painted prototype rolling around and it just goes vroom, the sound effect from the game when he calls it?
Amazing.
All three of those super versions are so nice. Like I waver a lot.
Wild Ride.
Yeah, the Wild Ride is superb, honestly, with all the decals and everything. I waver a lot on Sideburn as to which one is nicer, the blue or the red. I really struggle with that. Like it's one where I don't think I could legit say I'll keep this version over the other because they're both so nice. Maybe the red just ekes it. I don't know. It's
gold rims, man.
Yeah, the gold rims are really nice. Yeah, the gold rims are really nice. And then I love the fact with that between those two that then you get the 3 Kyodai version, the clear version as well from that box set that is halfway between the two, and I think that is amazing. Like when you look at it,
the gold rims of the supers.
It's got I actually can't remember if the rims are gold or not. I'll have to.
They're gold.
They are gold, right? I was going to say I was trying to remember from memory or not whether they were, but it's sort of like a combined deco if you want, because it's obviously meant to be from the show, like when he's transforming between the two modes, if you like. And it only happens once, I think, from memory in the cartoon.
I have one memory of it. Yeah.
I think it's when they're in the desert or whatever. But it's very brief. But you can see that, like if you look at it, that there are elements of blue on there, but there are elements of the red as well. So like on the flames, it's got the blue outline, but then ultimately it's the red color scheme kind of underneath it. So it's absolutely stunning in hand. Stunning.
I completely believe it. I love how this line just unashamedly put everything in clear plastic. Because yes, you'll never escape all the comments like, "Oh, well, that'll shatter." Well, you know what? It's been 20 years and it hasn't.
Yeah.
So, but then you get these absolutely glorious looking exclusives that are so lush, and those super car repaints. I love that they're so intertwined into the story. Like you can't have God Magnus or Ultra Magnus out without getting the super colors of the cars out.
Yeah, well, this is it, and they just sort of flick between them, don't they, in the show so readily, and it's such a cool way that they do it as well, the way that they change color. So in a way, it would be easier, if they just change color permanently, and you'd just be like, they're now red forevermore or whatever. But the fact that they actually flick back and forth between the two colors just makes it all the more essential, in my opinion. It's you can't just have the one and not the other. So
I'm pretty sure by the time this episode's finished, I'm going to have bought the blue and white Prowl.
Do it, man. Honestly, it's a timeless classic.
It's not obscenely expensive. And you know what? It's so nice in that Hasbro packaging as well.
Yeah.
It's so pretty. I think I really like that the Takara versions of Mark Alert don't have the Autobot symbol on the hood. I really like how clean it looks without it.
It's something that's never bothered me, that Autobot symbol. I know people are, sort of pride it or whatever without it, but I quite like it with.
And man, those toys have been recolored since, haven't they?
Yes, very much so. Some of them are good, actually.
Yeah.
Some of the recolors are really nice. There's some
Red Alert look quite nice.
Yeah, there's some that I would go to town on. Honestly, like I would really kind of go to bat for. But some of them are a bit more dubious, fair to say. But they're not all bad by any means.
I'd love to have them all. I mean, what a beautiful trio of molds, and totally the poster boys for this line. I think even more than Superfire Convoy.
Yeah, I would agree.
When I think of this line, it's those toys.
Yeah, they epitomise this line. Those Car Brothers.
The one that is really nice, the recolors, is there's a Universe sideburn, which is grey with a red bumper. I don't know if you've seen that. The actual robot mode looks very similar to the super mode, the same colours, but it's got like a grey car mode, and I've got it, and it's really lovely in car mode in hand. It's one that you want to kind of keep in car mode, really, just because of how nice it is.
I'm just looking at X-Brawn here. Wild Ride is my version, which is actually closer to the Mercedes car mode that it's based on. And look how many car parts it has, like the little chrome grill thing at the front that's detachable, the bars that become his weapons underneath the car, with the opening door, the sunroof, the tire at the back, and it's all like super incorporated. You can almost forgive the fact that he has a massive swollen
hand.
Oh, yeah. You just forgive the toy for that because it's so damn cool.
It's part of his personality, isn't it? It's a characterful thing. That's one of the things about these cars is they are asymmetrical, these robot modes. And it's so unique and interesting. We're so used to symmetrical robot modes, aren't we?
Yeah. You have to steer into it a little bit, I think. Yeah. I think if you're going to look at, Wild Ride is probably the ultimate example, X-Brawn, and think, no, that's not for me, then the toy line's not going to work for you. But I think if you kind of steer into it a little bit and just accept it for what it is, and you'll have great fun with it. So it definitely was a robot mode that took me back a bit, I think, on first viewing, first time I saw it. But I love it now, definitely.
They're so Japanese anime robot-y of that time as well.
Yeah, really
particularly in the head sculpts. And
what head sculpts, man.
When you look at Prowler, like he's got the head sculpt, but then he's got the exhaust going over his chest.
That's so cool.
That bit flips up and slides it in there. It's just stuff like that.
Those exhausts, that is one of the best little features. It's just absolutely incredible. So there's always the bit on Wild Ride.
The seat feet.
Yeah. Actually, you're right.
The way they transform. I love the seat feet.
The seat feet are very cool. There's always the bit on X-Brawn that everybody forgets, and I have forgotten in the past as well, is to fold the wheels forward, isn't it, on the legs?
Yeah.
It's very common.
20 years I've been making that mistake.
Oh yeah, I always make that mistake. Honestly, I know there's some pictures of mine out there of the clear set where I forgot to do it.
It's Masterpiece Sideswipe and his little fold down bits on the legs, isn't it?
It is. It's just like that little added detail that you don't need to do, but ultimately, it's not correct without it. So it is funny. And then actually, just thinking about Prowl, one thing that's quite weird is the little blast effect pieces that he comes with,
Yeah.
which is a bit of an unusual one, isn't it? No other toy has that from memory.
That's actually, I made this mistake when we did our Classics episode. I said that Classics Hot Rod was the first toy that had a molded flame missile.
You did say that.
And it was actually this toy that had it first. And I'm realizing 6 years earlier, it's Mark Alert.
Yeah.
That had the molded flame. And it's got that really weird launch mechanism with the big blob that you sort of press to launch it.
Friction, isn't it, rather than a spring?
Yeah,
I think
exactly.
you just push it.
Yeah, super cool, man. Super cool. I love all three of those toys. Just cannot get enough of them.
Yeah, the weapon storage is just mega on those.
Yeah. Are you going to get the clear set, Maz?
100%, yes, I am. And I know the person I would like to buy it off as well. I think he's just been kind enough to not sell them yet. And,
right.
I hope when I have the funds, I can just, because he's got a non-yellowed set as well. I've always loved that set. And I remember when it was like 35 to 50 quid.
Yeah.
This whole line you could say that about. JRX, though, has never been cheap. Like, that's one that hasn't been super cheap. Oh, apart from when I sold mine for £17 in the gift set box, but we'll not dwell on that for a fourth episode.
Oh, man.
I started my auctions at 1p and just let them go.
Yeah, that's...
These toys have not always been popular.
That's not good, is it? Whoops.
Yeah.
I was going to say, I recall the one that I brought from you not being too expensive, but...
no, it was like 55 quid.
Yeah, something like that. It still wasn't pricey.
No, and I asked the guy who bought it off me for 17 quid years later. I still remember it. I was like, hey, is there any chance you'd sell that back to me? And he goes, yeah, I might sell it back to you, but I'd like £200. I was like, all right, maybe not then.
Fair enough. I mean, it is what it is, isn't it? Times change. So that's the money you could get for it now. So, but yeah, no, JRX is amazing. Rail Race is amazing. Old toy is incredible. We've talked a lot about that toy on previous episodes. So I don't necessarily think we need to do a huge deep dive on it today.
No.
But it is worth acknowledging just what a beautiful mold.
Our train minisode, we talked about it on there as well, didn't we?
We did.
People want to hear more of our thoughts on it.
Yeah,
we have a minisode dedicated to train formers, and JRX definitely got some airtime. But it's just nice to know that the way I remembered it from the times I've owned it, and I've got it again now, it hasn't diminished at all. It is every bit as wonderful as I remembered it to be. It's worth all the hype. It really is.
It's one that whenever you pull it out now, for a bit of, like if you're doing a photograph of it or whatever, people go crazy for it. Yeah. They just absolutely love it. So, and if there is a legacy version or a future generations version of any kind, no doubt it'll be a popular thing, I think.
Again, like so many of the RID toys, rather than remakes, they need reissues, don't they?
Yes.
That's
reissue
more
JRX
than anything.
would be a great shout.
It would. It would be nice. It'd be nice if they found a way to keep the clear plastic but make it more durable. That would be a beautiful thing. That's the only real, I always not as worried about clear plastic toys as maybe some people are, but it's been one in my collection that I am like starting to get a bit about as time goes on. Do you know what I mean? It's just, you can see there are little wear spots and things.
Yeah, I have a combined set that I'll never decombine that came straight out of a gift set box, and I'll always keep that as my combined JRX. But I have a loose set as well, which is also car robots with clear plastic. Those go between the modes, and that's what they're for.
Yeah, that makes sense. Oh yeah, God, you picked up like 8 sets of it at one point.
I've got these two. I've got a gift set one, and I got the individual packed version. I love the fact that they did them in 2 styles of packaging, and that's another thing you get with the car robots, the gift sets. And you don't get that with really with RID. You didn't get the trains in the gift set. You didn't get the Combaticons in the gift set. Oh wait, but you did later with the repaints.
It's just a funny old thing about, talking to you regularly and obviously sharing as we do behind the scenes sometimes, like, oh, what have you bought recently or what have you got recently? And it'd be like, oh yeah, I've got this new toy of this, that and the other. And Liam's like, oh, I've got this new thing. And Maz is like, oh yeah, I got another JRX. And it's like, cool. Okay, another one. Great.
Like, would you mind not buying 150th Mini Spy and just get that toy you've been talking about for like 3 years?
It's good, man. We've all got our ways to collect, haven't we? So.
It was that one. I can't remember which one of the trains it was, and you were just like, someone's just selling them so cheap, and it seemed like you just kept buying them.
Yeah,
I've only got. Okay, I know it's a ridiculous thing to say, but I do only have 2 of each. I've got a box JRX gift set, and I've got the single pack version.
But how many have you owned in your life?
Oh, that's a different thing. That's a different thing.
Might be pushing it a bit more. a bit higher there. So
Probably something close to the actual stock of Japanese Shinkansen trains in
Right.
service. It would be
or
a closer
maybe you've owned as many JRXs and rail racers or whatever as Liam has passed up landfills.
Every time he passes up a landfill, I buy a JRX.
Right, exactly. Between the two of you, honestly, what is going on? So, well, let's talk about landfill because we need to enable Liam on it clearly more than we have.
So good.
See M.A.S.K clenching his fists.
So good. I've left this toy for years and was like, how could it be as good as people say? I mean, look at that janky robot mode. What is it? And then
It's a bizarre robot mode.
Wedge is so irritating in the cartoon. So irritating. But man, these toys are top drawer. They're
Yeah.
so fun, so pretty, great to transform, epic to combine. And I just keep going between the configurations. Like at the moment, I've got Grimlock as the arms again, but I'll have Hightower as the arms by the end of the week. It's
You
so fun.
actually, you inspired me a little bit because I find that whenever I combine them, and they do spend probably most of their time in combined mode, but I do like decombining them and fiddling with them because they are fun. And I like the fact that there's kind of so much to do with them that actually you're never really done. You can kind of keep discovering new permutations or, again, because they've got the kind of multiple possibilities of where to put some of the cranes and things like that. So it's sort of non-ending really. But you did kind of inspire me to think maybe I won't kind of keep going back to the same combined mode configuration, that there is more ways to do it. I tend to always sort of sit on the one, but I'm gonna mix it up a bit.
And I have considered getting another Hightower so that I can have a bit more symmetry, but have the red big chunky arms. The thing is, they're all really simple toys. Well,
Yes, they are.
like really simple, and no matter what configuration you have them in, it's really easy. Then you've got Grimlock, the green one, and his contortion to make the combined mode, it actually defies memory. Like I cannot do it from memory.
No, I find
It's
transforming
mad.
Grimlock, even getting Grimlock back into his vehicle mode is one that I find I'm like, how do these arms go? Do you know
Twist,
what I mean?
twist, flip, twist, twist, flip, click,
Yeah.
twist, clip, twist, flip.
There's
It's
no
mad.
obvious way that they're supposed to sit that is that would kind of aid the memory or whatever. It's just completely arbitrary. So yes, I find that similarly very difficult. Has to be said.
It's like
So,
all of the engineering went into Grimlock, and
Yeah.
then the rest are just blocks.
yeah, they're funny. It is a funny old
But
thing. for
that
sure.
connection mechanism, the three of them come together to make the background guy, and then Wedge goes on top. It doesn't look like it could hold up the weight of this toy at all.
I was surprised. The
Yeah.
first time I saw it in hand, I was like, "Ooh, what's this?" Do you know what I mean? How's that gonna work? It doesn't look like it's going to be very solid at all, but it really does the job.
Beautiful toy, fantastic, fun figure.
So, would you ever have any interest in like some of the the repaints and things, like the yellow recolor of that one, or is that just a?
I think you know the answer to that, don't you?
We'll get you there.
Yeah, won't be long.
And the Devastator,
Yep, why not?
why not?
That's another beautiful coloured set. That
Yeah, it does look really good.
When a
Does look
toy is
really
this good, why wouldn't you have it in other colours?
I have the yellow one. It's really nice. And but again, the yellow one was, we keep saying it, don't we? But that was one that was going for, I mean, like 10 quid sealed at one stage. It was ridiculously cheap. But I gather, Liam, that's no longer the case, right?
No, it's still quite cheap. Like I've seen it for like £20-something,
Right.
But it's one of those where the second you see it, it's gone by the time you go to press the button.
Okay, yeah.
But also,
Something
would
like
you
that.
want the show colours or would you want the yellow one?
Yeah, I prefer the show colours because I love they're so saturated. They look like Chewits.
Yes.
It's just like you really want to chew them.
Yep.
They look sweet. Yeah.
That's the thing this line does. It makes Transformers edible. I mean, just look at the Just Go Spy Changes. It's Jolly Ranchers as a
They
car.
are Jolly Ranchers. Yeah.
They're just
Yeah.
edible.
It
And
really
like
is.
the clear orange wrecker hook that I photographed this week, that's just like Iron Brew as a truck.
Yeah.
It's Iron Brew Lollipop.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Just Go Indie Heat has a real kind of toothpaste vibe to it. I think. It's like minty fresh, It's,
Beautiful, beautiful.
it really does. Yeah, and Liam, you should definitely pick up that landfill set. It's a shame that no one's ever linked you to one that was a really good price or anything like
I
that.
know. I mean, if you ever see one, feel free to let me know.
Yeah.
So,
No, well,
no one has. So.
maybe if I see 12 of them, I might do that.
$22 sealed. $22.
That was the one I missed, wasn't it? Because I forgot about it.
Also, can I just say, it wasn't a landfill, it was Build King in the
Right.
gift set
It's
box.
true. It's true.
It's just, it was listed at a bad time of day. It finished at a terrible, obviously because you fell asleep and didn't see it. It's like, it was just
Yeah.
Shocking. And I still needed one at that point. And I was like, I can't believe he hasn't bought it. I want to bloody
You
bought
need
it.
to talk to Drunk Liam. Drunk Liam's the one
Yeah.
that controls
He's
the
the one who
purse.
would have done
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
He's the one that bought the Black Zarek without even
Drunk
notifying
Liam
the other Liam.
doesn't get on his phone though.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
That's the truth.
In my defense, I mean, I don't really have a defense, but I'm probably going to end up buying that toy by the time this episode airs.
Right. Do it, man. You'll have a blast with it.
Yeah. I've wanted it for ages, but it's just that, you know me, I like to buy stuff and it arrive quick because I'm very impatient.
Yeah.
So that's why I mainly look at eBay UK because I know it'll be here within.
You don't want it from America or Japan or whatever.
But like, if you do buy it and it doesn't arrive quickly, being Liam, imagine all the other things you could occupy yourself with, like magic beans or chasing your tail in the meantime. And then suddenly one day it arrives.
I won't
be the
point
greatest
out,
day.
I won't point out that it could have arrived several times over already if he just bought the thing.
No, I get that part. I get it's so bad. It makes no
It's gonna
sense.
build kingdom by now.
It's that once I know it's on the way, I kind of like we're constantly like thinking about it. So that's
Okay.
it, yeah.
I get that. So anyway, fantastic toy. Really excited for you to own it.
Always check the cockpit on Hightower for the gun.
Yes, it's got a little gun that hides away, doesn't it? And I have mine. But
How about those head sculpts as well? I didn't know that the head sculpts for each one are based on the type of construction vehicle that they are. Didn't know that.
It's true. Yeah, it's kind of a similar-ish theme, isn't it, to some of the Micromaster combiners and things like that, where they kind of got the little hats on and things. It is a cool thing.
Him and Six Builder could hang out easily.
Yeah, for sure.
There also that line has amazing head sculpts. Like we didn't mention Ultra Magnus's head sculpts on Sony's.
It's amazing head sculpts, not just great ones, but amazing knockout head sculpts all the way through.
I will say, actually, Magnus, just as it's come back up, is one that the Encore version, again, is brilliant because it's got the actual kind of gold chrome on the head crest and things, and it is really striking. Looks stunning.
It's beautiful, yeah.
With the darker blue and everything as well. It's really nice.
Power Master Optimus rolly bits on the side.
Yeah, super cool.
And in the show, his head sculpt was beautifully animated. It looked like a really G1 face, didn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, the lovely character model.
Right, well, do you want to talk about spy changes then? Are we going to move on to old spy changes at all, or should we come back to
we should mention the fact that, they were in the line.
Well, absolutely. Well, full disclosure, we are going to do an exclusive minisode on spy changes in more detail because we kind of feel like there's so much to talk about with these little guys that actually we just really kind of want to have the time dedicated to it. And one thing we do with the minisode sometimes is that we will kind of veer off into kind of more, like dedicated territory on a topic that we've done a kind of full episode on. So, if you are on Patreon, then you'll be getting that soon. If you're not, it might be a little incentive to sign up. Wink, wink. But we're definitely going to go into more detail on those. But it is a super cool gimmick. So, talking top line, I do love the fact that they brought those G2 molds back. I love the fact that they did all new decos for them as well. I kind of feel like they could have just re-released the G2 toys as they were, but they didn't. And
beautiful decos.
It's stunning. Absolutely stunning. So
I mean, Calvan is fantastic.
Or old Ox.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's that Ironhide in
it's Ironhide, yeah.
RID parlance.
Yes, indeed. It's confusing, isn't it, keeping up with all the names, definitely. So yeah, he's really, really
I
good.
won't hear this nonsense that they have crap names in car robots. I love how crazy their names are. Eagle
crazy.
Killer.
Counter
Arrow.
Counter Arrow's a great name.
And then Ox.
Yeah. Who thinks they got crap names?
Oh, fans. Although the one I dislike is Artfire. I've never liked that name on any toy. What a silly name for a toy. Artfire.
It doesn't bother me at all.
It's a vicious painting. Artfire. I hate that name.
Who's burning paintings?
Well, there you go.
Artfire.
Goes around burning down museums. That's what he does.
Yeah, exactly. That's his backstory.
Eagle Killer.
Eagle Killer's a great name. But I love that you're like, what's this deal with Artfire? On fire, what? But then Eagle Killer, you're like, yeah, of course, that makes total sense.
Counter Arrow. What a great name.
Exactly. One guy's just called Wars. It's about as on the nose as you can get. What's his name? Who are you? Wars.
What about X cars? What do we call this? Was an X on the hood? It's a car.
Yeah,
X car.
X car, isn't it? What's his name? Wars. It's just hilarious. Absolutely brilliant name to all of them. I love
He's
it.
a beast.
He's a beast. Yeah, it's a great little set. They're fantastic toys. The only slight possible small little nitpick I might allow in their direction is that you can't do anything with the guns when they're in car mode, which is a shame.
Yeah, you can. Yeah, you can. You stick the arm out and you plonk it.
I knew you were going to say that.
Because they do it in the show, don't they?
Yeah, they do
Attack
it in the
mode.
show. They do. Yeah, it's a bit of an Omnibot thing, isn't it? I'm surprised you
M.A.S.K.
talk about it. But yeah, no, I'm talking about like a bit of. It would be nice if they plugged into the top of the car or something, but then you'd have a little hole,
Yeah.
so maybe not. But yeah, great little toys. Love
And then
them.
you got the Justco exclusives, Justco store exclusives, which come in this little black baggie. Don't tell you who's inside.
Yeah, it's mad.
But if you know how to feel your bag, then you know there are good things in your
Matt's got a
future.
brand new bag.
I'm not even going to tell you. So I did a lot of bag fondling.
We made a whole thing of bag fondling, didn't
There was
we?
a lot of bag fondling
Yeah.
going on. Yeah, I mean, you and
I
I
did. I can confirm.
You and I went. Yes, you and I went on a bit of a joint mission, didn't we, to acquire
Great
all
success.
the super. It was a fantastic success buying blind bagged spy changers, and then. But I do you know what the funny one was? Is I remember I was on Messenger with you, kind of unveiling which ones they were, and I was sat in an Argos car park at about 8:30 in the morning, and I'd just been to pick them up from the delivery. They'd been to the depot or whatever, and from Japan, and I'd just gone to pick them up, and Argos wasn't open yet, but I had to stop by and get a couple of bits, and I was just sat in my car in the driver's seat, just like. Obviously not driving, but just fondling these bags and texting you, going, "It's a wars, it's an eagle killer," just like that, and totting up how many we had. And I think we did really well actually. Of all the
That was
ones we
great.
got, we ended up with pretty much a complete set. I think you had 2 more to go.
You completed your set, and I just needed 2. I think
It worked out beautifully. Honestly, it was such a fun moment.
the last one I needed was Ox, and a friend in Japan found one in a collector's store, not in Tokyo, but way out, and it was offensively cheap because the store owner said these were super unpopular at the time.
Yeah,
Nobody wanted them.
I remember.
They just stopped doing them. And so as a result, on the secondhand market there, and I'm not talking about online where they see collectors like us coming, just in collector stores, they were just dirt cheap. And they sell really fast to non-Japanese collectors, but they don't seem to have a whole lot of interest there. So yeah, these Justcos are so beautiful. They're so pretty as a set. It's all clear, just glorious. And I mean, the normal coloured ones are nice enough, but these are just totally stand out.
I definitely enjoyed witnessing that whole saga of you two getting those toys
That was
without
fun.
knowing what was going off. Just
I know you
the
seem
concept of it. And then I almost ended up buying a set.
you seem super confused by it at all times.
We should actually distinguish here that in 2003 is when the super spy changers came out. So those were like totally recolored blind box packs, and then there were clear chase versions of those, which are just all clear with some deco.
It's horrendously confusing actually once you throw in the RID ones as well, and especially once you add in G2 GoBots on top of it. I mean, you at the risk of saying it and sounding like a total sado, you need a spreadsheet or some way of documenting what is what and what you've collected, because there's so many molds that are repeated but slightly different versions, and you've got 2 clear versions in RID, clear versions in car robots. It's all over the map in terms of
Some that come with a tin.
Yeah, tiny tins,
coffins.
Yeah. It's just tremendously hard. Even now, like I know that I need 3 of the clear ones, the exclusives, but I would need to double check which 3 it is. Do you know what I mean? Because it's just impossible to kind of keep up with. But the RID versions I think are really lovely as well. And I don't know, M.A.S., I think if you were to get in on
look,
it,
I've seen the clear green Mirage. It's going to happen.
right?
With the number 1 on it, it's going to happen.
Yeah.
I sent you pictures, didn't I, when I went to visit my mum when I found the old pieces of RID Ultra Magnus that were Spy Changers, Mirage, and Ironhide with all the paint gone, but they're still there. And yeah, just playing with them there. There's just fantastic little toys.
Yeah,
to pick up.
you
like
can't put them down.
Mini bots.
Yeah,
just like mini cars. Just so simple and fun.
Okay, so just one more Autobot to really kind of talk through in great detail today, and that is the biggest one of all, of course. It's old Brave Maximus, who's called Fortress Maximus in the show, but the toy is Brave Maximus, and what a thing. I mean, the mere fact that this toy was repainted to such a degree and re-released as part of this line is just unprecedented.
As if
Absolutely
this
amazing.
line didn't do enough.
Yeah.
It brought back G1 Fort Max
I know. And
to
actually,
retail.
let's be honest, and I'm not just saying this, but it's a nicer deco as well. Like it's, a lot of people would say that, but the Brave Max version is in some ways the nicest one.
It's really close to the original Diaclone Great Robot base colours as well.
That's true, actually. Not really considered that, but...
But, I've had this Encore Fort Max for like 3 years now, and it only came out of the box properly this weekend that just went past. And I was a little bit underwhelmed when I got it out. I was like, is this it? Then why am I not feeling the love for this toy that everyone in the fandom has always felt? And, stood there in robot mode with all the guns in the world pointing out, massive sword, looking super clean, totally dull without stickers, a color scheme that, like you said, doesn't match Brave Max. And I thought, maybe I don't need a Brave Max at all because it's massive, it's expensive. I've got a Fort Max here, which has lived in a box for 3 years. I can't understand why I don't love it. Then I thought, well, maybe I should transform it. And all I needed to do was add my daughter. And that was it. She just showed me so clearly why that toy is a masterpiece. The look on her face when she realized it had an elevator. And I watched her play with it. I was like,
a real thing.
All right, let me play now. It was just,
all right,
it was wonderful. I will be buying a Brave Max in short order.
Nice. Brave Max is cool, man. I mean, it's a shame it doesn't have the guns on the retail version and all that, but doesn't. I've heard people say, "Oh, I didn't get it because it didn't have the guns." I think that's a shame because it doesn't detract that much from not having the guns. It's still got tons of play value to it. It's still got enough going on. I mean, ultimately, it's still got massive guns in the, in his abs and in his arms and things like that. So
shins,
yeah. I mean, it's not like he's short of guns or weaponry or of any kind. But it is spectacular. The color scheme is amazing. I must admit, at the time when I got it, it was a total whim purchase. It was actually some dude that I think it was through eBay, but it was just an insane story. I mean, I got talking to this dude, and he was like, "Oh, I have this thing as well. This, I don't know if you'll know it. This old car robots, Brave Maximus." And I was like, "Yes, I'm very interested. How much do you want for it?"
Classic Sixo.
He'd taken it out of the box once, but he reckoned it was 20 years ago or something, whatever it was. It kind of actually been quite 20 at the time, but 15 years ago maybe. And he told me the price. I mean, it was just ridiculously cheap. I mean, well under what you would get it for now. But the deal was, the only thing is that it was about, I forget, maybe a 2-hour drive or something like that. Because he didn't want to post it. He was adamant he wasn't going to post it. So I had to drive and pick it up. So I did. Just got in the car and went and drove, but it was in the middle of nowhere. This house, honestly, he lived with his dad.
Sixo in people's houses and getting great toys.
It was mad.
Classic. Tale as old as time.
Yeah, I was chatting with his dad for a bit as well. I remember he's a nice guy.
Sixo
really
and
nice
people's dads. It's just tale as old as time.
It was a fun day. I remember just driving down little, those little country lanes that you drive down where it's wide enough for one car. And then just occasionally another car comes.
Sixo and country lanes, man.
Man.
Anyway, I'm done now.
It's my thing. Anyway, I came home with a Brave Max and I've loved it ever since. And he's brilliant. And the big thing with it is the city mode. When you transform it, it's got lots of lovely little paint applications and things to look like city lights. So all the bits on Fort Max, which I do love Fort Max, and I do love Grand Max, but it really shows it off nicely on Brave Max.
And stickers pre-applied, of course.
Yes, all pre-applied, so straight out of the box, you can just crack on with it. But just the colours are so nice. The blue's really saturated, the red's really saturated. It's got the green kind of little
Synthwave Max, man. It's just so pretty.
It's another one of the black just sets it off all amazingly. It's another of those colour schemes that actually really should not work, but it's beautiful.
Yep.
Which I think Transformers does well.
But in the promo photography, it was actually G1 Colors Fort Max that they used. I found this ad for Car Robots early on.
Oh, I didn't know
and,
that.
it's the Car Robots line, the Autobots, but it's G1 Fortress Maximus.
That's so weird.
In G1 colours. So I thought, well, I've got that toy, so maybe I don't need the Brave one. But I've come to realise in the space of a weekend that that's just not going to cut it.
So you're going to have 2 Maxes in your collection?
I like to make things difficult for myself. So I'm actually going to see if I can find a lucky draw version with the accessories.
Bloody hell. You're going to go for it, son?
And I don't care if it takes me 2 years to pay it off. That's what I'd like
Fair
to
enough.
have.
Yeah, why not?
I know people who own it, so
Yeah,
you know.
I was going to say, it's not impossible. You've set your sights high with the rest of the line, haven't you, in terms of,
And it's been worth it.
get the
It's
bits
been
you want.
worth waiting for the version I wanted, apart from Gigatron. That was a terrible idea.
But part of the fun is in the collecting, isn't it? And then getting the version that you really want. So
The discovery, yeah. Discovering certain differences between the toys that I'd never seen anyone talk about. Like, okay, it wasn't a great discovery to find out that Indy had a bent up rear wing on everything, but no one's said anything about it for decades. Or finding out that the little top part of Magnus, if you look at the cab, immediately you can tell if it's Car Robots or RID because of the color. And little things like that are why I collect.
I think the big thing about Max for me that really is exciting about it is how accurate again it is in the cartoon, because it was thrilling seeing G1 Fort Max in Rebirth, but it was a total fudge in terms of how it was represented. I mean, when you see him transforming, it's just literally bits morphing almost and the really none of the alt modes, there's guns everywhere and none of it looks like the actual toy particularly. Do you know what I mean? The robot mode, yes, but everything else going on with it, is just made up. And that's fine. It works in the Rebirth. I do enjoy that scene, as brief as it is. But the way that Max is, to the point where they take account of, the actual kind of headmaster and the emissary, as they call it, isn't it? The Cerebros and the middle bit. And, the way that they kind of figure out all of that and that they just make it super toy accurate in how it transforms and everything. It's enjoyable beyond belief to kind of see it.
I remember seeing in Another World, they had they had it imported in, and it's one of the first times that I'd come across a toy where I couldn't afford it. At that age, like a toy that was genuinely out of my reach because it wasn't earning money to spend on big toys like that. But it was the first time seeing a genuinely big toy that I wanted that was just far too expensive at the time. What was that, 2002, something like that?
Yeah,
but it's the first time I'd ever seen Fort Max outside of like
it's a moment, isn't it? It's a moment.
Yeah, so it was the first time actually seeing a toy like that. And I just remember the box and just being like, wow.
And of course, they tried to release it for Hasbro, but it wouldn't pass the safety tests, would it? I think it was the drop test. That's the classic.
That's the
story,
legend, isn't it? Yeah, for sure. So, which is a shame, but it's crazy that it came out, from Takara at all. And as I say, that they did it in different colours. I'm so pleased that they did do it in different colours.
It's a great thing to exist.
A shame.
Yeah, and I think for a while, I mean, we haven't really talked about Sonicon too much, but like the Korean releases are almost identical, or they are identical to the Japanese releases. So there's a Sonicon version of Brave Max as well, and for a while that was the way to go.
Yeah, for sure. So,
$80 for some people.
It's just a beautiful thing. It's honestly like a real standout. I am pleased that you're going to go for it and that you've kind of found your love with with Fort Max, and that you'll track one down, a Brave and everything. Because I don't know, it's not a perfect toy by any means, but it is. There is something about it. It's got a presence to it, and it is a piece of history. And particularly in this line, it's just insane that it was, of all the things they could have ported over. I mean, Metroplex probably would have been easier, but they went for Fort Max, and it's just so outlandish and such a statement. And because of the line is so small as well, it stands out all the more for it.
That's what this line does. It's Transformers' greatest hits.
Yeah, it really is.
The biggest, the tiniest, the middle ground, the Beast Wars, the G2.
The stuff you never had before, the stuff that was never released.
Yes, exactly.
In Transformers' greatest hits. That's a great way to describe it. Absolutely. I love that. So
it's in 1 year.
And
it was 20 years ago.
I know. Let's move on then and just kind of finish up with some of the other Car Robots bits. And obviously we're moving into Decepticon territory. And we talked about Megatron and that mold, and Maz's passionate dislike, which is a shame, but I understand it. We've talked a bit about Skybite, of course, and then the rest of it is all. I mean, they're all repaints ultimately, but done really nicely. Do you see yourself, Maz, getting the other little Predacons? The three:
Man in Frog, Man in Skunk, and Man in Squirrel.
Yeah, Man in Flying Squirrel. Yeah,
yes, I do actually. Yeah. I would like them. Just to be able to say that I've tried them.
Yeah, exactly.
Skybite definitely made me think that I could enjoy those because Skybite's terrific.
They are really nicely done in hand. Like the paint is lovely. They've got the same wow factor, I think, up close of like very pretty toys. They're a little bit more kind of quirky and offbeat or whatever, but again, they match the show really nicely. So I wonder if how you'll get on with them. So I think they're fun.
Well, I've been looking for those toys, and they're quite difficult to find. I was looking for the RID versions.
3-pack.
Did they just come? Yeah, it was a box set, wasn't it? But they're really hard to find.
I think this actually easy to find the Car Robots versions.
I was going to say, yeah, I think the 3-pack is harder to find actually. You may find it easier to just get the Takara versions. I would do it, man. Honestly, they're lovely little things.
I'd quite like to. They look like cool toys, and they're fun characters in the show. They just got so much personality and life.
Left laser.
Look at you two getting in on the Beast Wars action, eh?
I own a Beast Wars mold now.
It's all right when it's RID. It's not
right.
Beast Gubbins.
It's been packaged properly.
Yeah.
All right, it's proper Transformers.
Yeah, look, it's the difference between a product leak and an official convention. That's what it is.
Don't get into that again, honestly. So,
how did you first see these toys, Mass?
At the bottom of a carrier bag, mate. It was an official carrier bag too.
There was some worry on social media that we were going to have replaced Liam for this episode, I think. But you will note that it is actual real Liam, and we haven't done
just
a
real Liam. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, exactly. We haven't done a roadie on him and just swapped out the actor or whatever. So
I'm still here.
カーロボット出撃パトカー 4WD スポーツカーロボットに変形だ悪のギガトロン出現驚異の6段変身戦えトランスフォーマーカーロボット
Anyway, moving on. So we do need to talk a bit about Black Convoy, don't we, or Scourge, because it's another toy. Yeah, well, it's another toy that is, and another character that is so synonymous with this line. And I think if you were to ask people what's a cool character from RID 2001, inevitably Scourge would come up. I guess because that's a character that has sort of then permeated much more in other areas of Transformers, hasn't it? The name Scourge.
He always turns up, doesn't he?
Right.
Black Convoys, and I think this is probably the best repaint in the line.
From a previous line, you mean?
Of all of them, like Brave Max, Skybite's pretty fabulous.
I was going to say, there are some real heavy hitters. That's a bold claim.
I think it's going to be this one. On looks alone, it just...
That shiny trailer.
Gosh, yes. Even the grille and
windows,
the pink...
man.
Yeah, the pink windows of the Takara version and the pink sword, just magnificent. Okay, the electrics are gone, but, it's still glorious.
It's never bothered me about the electrics not being there, to be fair. I've never... I don't know, maybe just because I was familiar with the G2 version already, it's not like a big thing to be like, oh, there's no electrics here. It's fine. So
this is one of the best looking toys ever made.
Yeah, see, when I got Scourge back in the day for the first time, I'd never had G2 Optimus Prime, so I didn't know there were electrics. And it was quite funny when I got G2 Optimus Prime, was it last week or the week before? And then I pressed it and the lights, everything lit up. And it just immediately, I was like, oh my God, I'd never even thought of this.
Do you think it's a real shame then that Scourge and Black Convoy don't have them now that you've experienced it?
No, because I enjoyed those toys so much that I wouldn't even think, like that it's a shame or anything like that. Because it was a great toy on its own.
But think about light up neon pink he could have all over.
Yeah, I do like the light up headlights. That actually genuinely
the light piping. Yeah. It is really cool. But again, the sword does a good job even without the light up gimmick. To be fair, it catches the light really nicely. I do love his pink.
It's the vehicle lights.
Yeah,
lights on the truck. That's cool.
That is really cool. The Hasbro version is a bit different, isn't it? It's more kind of darker shade. It's not quite so hot pink.
No, it's red. I think
it's red. Yeah, it's red.
It's red.
And the Decepticon logo is the other way around, isn't it? Yeah.
Well, actually, it's got a Decepticon logo on the side of the cab. Whereas Takara one doesn't. It has upside down G2 logos on the shoulders, which is mad and wicked.
Yeah, it's cool.
But what a fantastic toy, and the play value in that trailer is off the charts.
What I really like about the trailer is that, of course, on the original Laser Prime, you've got that amazing artwork on the side of it, which is just so in your face and just here's Optimus Prime with a flamethrower of all things. It's just
screw you, Greenpeace.
Yeah, exactly. It's just there's just something so unabashed about it.
And then he blames it on Octane.
Yeah.
But then here they've got the opposite in that it's I don't know, it's sort of almost understated, except for the fact that it's just like completely covered in chrome. And they could have just gone with like another, big sticker or something like that. But I actually like the fact that they kept it quite simple and sort of more real world, I guess. It really kind of works for it. And it makes Scourge or Black Convoy seem a little bit more evil by comparison, because he's
sinister.
a bit more sinister. Yeah, like it's completely sort of understated and can like slip into, into disguise or whatever. I really like that about him.
And he's amazing on the show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That animation model in movement is just incredible to behold. And man, again, I'd love to just reach into the TV and pull it out. It's that cool. Mm-hmm. That head sculpt, it's so pretty in that cartoon.
The way it transforms and everything, isn't it? And just like the head pops up and the shoulders come down and everything. It's just amazing. So a definite toy that I love. Do you think they'll do a Legacy repaint? They must do, right? Like they're going to.
No question.
Yeah, for sure. But I do think, I know I mentioned this, I think, previously, but I do think that Legacy toy, it looks nice, but the original, the thing is, I don't want to be one of those people that's like, oh, the original's so much better. You know, I mean, I actually kind of tried to not be that very purposely, but in this case, I just cannot see how that new trailer compares to the original. It's just, it looks like it's really pared down. And this is one thing that I do think, I used it as an example the other day in an article about how sometimes when they try and imitate gimmicks on new toys, when the original gimmick was so good, it's almost like they should have just done something slightly different with it, because it just looks like a bit of a pale comparison somehow. And I don't know, it's just the fact that there's so much play value loaded into that trailer and it works so well. I mean, it's at the time when G2, it was like one of the most gimmick-laden toys of all time. And it's it still works exceptionally well on Black Convoy. So
no, absolutely, and it's one of those where if you can't include those gimmicks, do something different.
That's it. They could have done their own thing. Yeah,
personally, yeah. But I think that Legacy one, I think it looks all right. It's not.
What would you have asked them to do with the trailer if not those gimmicks? It was like sort of come apart as bones and attached to Prime, like a crazy fossilizer truck.
Maybe an armor thing. It could have been great as a piece of like, I don't know, armor that assembles into something. Give it a super mode. It could have had more guns inside there or rockets or whatever. But I don't know.
A truck from M.A.S.K.
Yeah, there's loads that they could have done with it. It just looks like they've sort of approximated the original, but stripped it of some of the gimmicks. So it kind of ends up looking like a sort of nod to it, but not really like the real thing. I don't know. It's a unique complaint. It's not a big thing for me at all. I'm like, I still think the new version does look cool. It's just maybe because the original's so good.
Yeah, there's a difference between an update and an imitation, isn't there?
Right,
and that looks a lot like it's like a cut price version of that. Not in necessarily a bad way, because it looks fine for what it is. But when you've got the original to compare it to, and it's so attempting to be that. It's
that's
very obvious where there's stuff that's missing.
That's it for me. I think if you're going to reference something so closely, make it better than what there already is, or do something different. That's all I'm kind of getting at with that. I think.
Imagine if they'd made it better than the original. That would have been a moment in time for the hobby, wouldn't it?
Well, I would have loved to have seen it.
Do you know what they should have done? Is turned it into a like battle suit or something. Like Power Master Optimus Prime, something like that. Armor, that would have been fun. I think someone did that. Was it Make Toys or someone did that years ago?
I'm not sure, actually.
What with like the Battle Tanker mode?
It was Battle Tanker. That's what it was called, wasn't it? Yeah.
Well, I mean, hate to bring it up again, but I mean, Fans Hobby did a pretty good job with Arch Enemy in its trailer. It maintained all the fun features, and it was chrome, and it was massive, and it was just.
Are they sponsoring us? And I don't know. So...
They just do good toys, man. What can you say?
They do toys. That's the main thing. They do toys.
Yeah. But that's a good example, actually, because they updated that trailer. And do you know when they first came out and they did Arch Enemy, wasn't it? It was called. Yep. They did the Scourge Black Convoy. And it didn't come with the trailer.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, it's really nice. And I thought at the time, okay, they haven't done the trailer. And then they did, but fine. They haven't done the trailer. And actually, it's fine because the toy itself is so good, so really nice. Doesn't need the trailer. And the trailer would be would it be any good anyway? And then they did the trailer. Oh my God, they went to town on it. And that's what I'm saying is that they just absolutely loaded it to the brim with gimmicks, and not all of it is a complete replication of what the original does. That's the thing, it's got the kind of gun that comes off that he can hold in two hands and stuff like that, which is unique to what Fans Hobby have done. And they didn't hold back at all, and you can see that they really were like, how can we make this super fun?
Price point would a mainline toy have to be able to do stuff like that, though?
True.
with a modern day Laser Prime.
That's the consideration, isn't it? That's the
thing.
If it was Commander class like Rodimus, I mean, you'd kind of be getting close to the kind of gimmickry that it would be required to match the original, which just makes it mad that we ever got that toy in the first place.
I guess that's the thing, isn't it?
And then again, car robots, yeah.
Yeah, well, maybe that's the point to acknowledge is not that, what are the shortcomings of any potential new toy or whatever, but actually how lucky were we that we got the original at the time, which maybe we shouldn't have done, because it really is quite exceptional.
Yeah, imagine walking into Smith's today and seeing RID Scourge on the shelf. Oof. A toy that looks like that. All chrome trailer, massive truck, fantastic colours, laden with gimmicks. That chunky of a toy. I mean, we did get the all clear year of the something, Laser Prime in Toys R Us not so long ago. But I don't know, I feel like that didn't land very well, and it wasn't a moment for everyone to rush and get that. Maybe because RID Scourge wasn't that hard to get at the time. It wasn't very far from that in history. I don't know, but just seems like an era ago. Now you'd never get a toy like that in Toys R Us now. Or, well, no, because there is no Toys R Us, but it's Smith.
That Fate seemed to before pretty much all of those year of the whatever toys, didn't it? Like the MP10 repaint was just discounted repeatedly. The Omega Supreme, all those sort of things were always heavily discounted. And
although people love the MP10 one, the Year of the Horse one, they loved that.
Yeah.
It's got, I think for a lot of people, because they couldn't get the regular MP10 or Hasbro Masterpiece Optimus Prime or whatever, that was like
if only they'd done
MP10.
more versions of MP10 for people to be able to buy, huh?
There aren't enough. That's what I keep saying. Like it's a one-man crusade. Very much.
Needs more shoes.
Me banging the drum. I mean,
More
where
fruit.
are those other trainer decos? Right? Like, come on, Takara Tomy, pump them out. I'm ready. I'm waiting. That's what I'm saying.
Where's the Reebok pump version?
Oh,
yes. I see now. If they do a Reebok pump version, Twilight.
There we go. I can have the air rocket feature, from the G2 Prime trailer.
Oh, fantastic.
The little Reebok pump.
You've just designed the world's best crossover.
You're welcome, Hasbro.
J5、J7、J4 行くぞ合体 JRX 完成戦え新幹線合体 JRX.
Right, well, obviously we've been spending a fair bit of time on the Takara line, which, let's be fair, is kind of the main focus here. Because those are the kind of common toys that everybody thinks of, all the new molds, everything. But there is a lot more in, as we said, in the RID portion of it as well. A lot of extra toys. So it's worth just kind of rattling through some of those. I mean, there are just so many to kind of pick up on, but some really weird ones as well. And actually, I've quite enjoyed going through some of them. But, there's stuff like the 3-pack of Beast Machines lads, was it Night Cruise, Mirage GT, and Scavenger? I take it, Maz, this is the kind of stuff that would never particularly appeal to you, right?
I don't know. I mean, I'm all for discovering lines that, fall into these gaps in history. I mean, Megabolt Megatron might be something
that's a cool
probably
one.
Have to pick up. I mean, because that's just mental, isn't it?
Yeah, it's so mental. And that's a weird one for me because obviously it's very clearly a Beast Machines design. And are you aware of the reference with the big head? Do you know what it's all about?
I might have read about it because Raz owns the resin prototype, but it does actually fit on Fort Max, doesn't it?
It does.
Like a compatible head for Max.
Yeah. So in the Beast Machines cartoon, Megatron builds himself this massive fortress, if you like, that is supposed to be like his, new body or whatever. But it's a gigantic, like city-size floating head. That looks like the alt mode of this, but this has legs to it, little spider legs, whereas that's just like a big floating head. And it's in the cartoon and everything. And they obviously designed this toy, never released it, and then it comes out in RID. And it's totally mad because why have they put it out here? You know what I mean? It doesn't fit at all. But they just released it as Megatron Megabolt. But they also did the Megabolt version. So there are 2 versions of it. And it's the Megatron Megabolt that is the sort of colours that you would more kind of expect because it's like greys and blues and things like that. And yes, it does fit on top of Brave Max, which is mad, absolutely insane. Honestly,
of course. Well, maybe we should also mention that Perfect Effect did a Brave Max coloured repaint of Warden, which also fits Brave Max.
That's true, actually. I've not thought of that in a while, but I've never held that toy even. But I've seen pictures of it. It does look cool.
It's great. I used to own Perfect Effect Warden. It was a special figure.
So yeah, old Megabolt and Megatron Megabolt. I mean, it's weird that they even gave them similar names and everything. But Megabolt, which is kind of like, I don't know if you've seen pictures of it, but it's like a really weird green and blue. I don't have that one actually. I might have to. I don't know, for completeness sakes or whatever, I might have to go in on it eventually. But it's a fun mold. It's got to say, it's a couple of loose joints, but still fun. They then had the hero molds from Generation 2. So you got Destructicon Scourge and Destructicon Bludgeon, which is really weird. So these were the kind of combat hero Megatron and Optimus, which we had obviously under different names, but then they repackaged them for RID in new color schemes. And this is a weird set because actually the Megatron into Bludgeon is really nice. Like, I really like it. It's actually in some ways sort of maybe my preferred version.
I'd totally buy that Destruction Scourge.
The Scourge one.
Totally buy that.
Yeah,
I used to have it. I love that toy. It was beautiful.
It's got, it's not. I will say the Scourge, you can kind of tell that the mold has degraded a little bit. Do you know what I mean? Like versus the G2 version, it's got a couple of issues or whatever, but it is still really, really nice.
Really fun to pose as well. It's just a really poseable toy.
Yeah, that's actually one. Those two, that air compressed gimmick, that is one that my son goes nuts for. Like, he loves it. Just like literally slamming it and having the thing fly off or whatever. I remember my wife, him and me, absolutely killing ourselves laughing on the kitchen table one afternoon when we were like playing with it and everything. And he just loves it. Absolutely loves it. So
kids like toys with gimmicks. Who would have thought, eh?
Right, exactly.
I think that was my first encounter with that mold, the Destructicon Scourge. I don't think I knew there was a combat hero Optimus Prime before that. So
right, that's interesting.
So yeah, when I first bought that, I thought that was its own toy. I could tell the Optimus Prime theme, but I thought that was just a Scourge thing.
Yeah,
at that time,
it's kind of weird that they because they actually did 3 Scourge toys, if you like, didn't they? In RID, because there's the little spy changer as well, of course.
Yeah,
perfect for Brave Max's little compartment, eh?
He is. That's where mine lives, in the little sort of bluey green compartment. Yeah, he lives in there, so it's really nice. But yeah, they did those guys. They then did Dreadwind and Smoke Jumper, which were repaints of the Generation 2 toys, the Dreadwind from there. And they're really nice. I only got them relatively recently, actually, those two. But I love those molds anyway.
Didn't Liam got them recently, didn't he?
I was going to say.
I did.
Yeah, you got them as well, didn't you, Liam? I thought you had, yeah.
Recommend?
Yeah, they're really nice. The missiles fall off the wings constantly because they've got like a carpet bomb, so you just push them down. But trying to peg them in is really difficult because the other ones constantly fall out as you go in. But yeah, fantastic mold. I'm so glad I got those.
Had you had the mold before?
No, so it was brand new to me.
Right. And Maz, have you ever?
No, but I'm just thinking this whole movement, CR and RID, is perfect for experiencing special legendary molds.
Yes,
but not the vintage first releases of them. It's like this line would have been. It's just like I said. It's just the greatest hits. It just carries on being that, bringing the best of Transformers into it.
I agree. I love those molds anyway, those two. I mean, I had the G2 versions back in the day in the 90s. I already had the Beast Wars Seconds version as well. And the green ones, the RID ones, are really, really nice. And I just love it. Absolutely love it. The little jet, Smoke Jumper, is such a unique transformation. I say unique, actually. It's funny because then they modelled, I think it's the Energon Starscream after him, although it's a different mold. But it's really cool how it transforms. It's for a toy that size, Maz, I reckon you'd love it, mate. Honestly, like it's the particularly the smaller mold is just so bizarre, but fantastic and super articulated.
It's really fun. But you're right there. Like you're saying, like for me, this line is a way into so many toys that so many obscure toys because it's not like G1 Megatron or G1 Optimus that you see. It's the G2 toys that are less prevalent and people are less aware of. So they get their own life in this toy line as well. They sort of exist on their own, but they're also great ways to experience those molds.
I think that's exactly it. So,
and of course, like the Ruination, the Bruticus, it had that thing where you could combine all of the guns, and that's the mold they use for Encore G1
that's
Bruticus.
Very true.
Which is
that's very true.
A lovely thing.
Yeah,
yeah, absolutely true. I still sometimes I think, oh, should I get a Ruination as well as a Baldigus? I have Baldigus. But it's just funny how they did such a different deco on it, isn't it? I wonder why they did that.
It's true, because it's not show accurate either. And then they did the urban camo and then the desert camo. How many versions are there? Hasbro did 3 versions, right?
3 versions, yeah. Just those 3. Although the which one is it? Not the urban one. The urban one is the grey one.
Yeah.
And then you've got the kind of desert camo, if you like. The desert camo actually wasn't RID, that's Universe.
Right.
Because there's actually a bit of crossover with some of the stuff. You could still say it's RID, and I think that's acceptable.
No, one less toy to need to buy is
right. Yeah, definitely. If it helps, there is a lot of stuff that falls under Universe that could be considered RID. Some of the Speedbreaker
Car Brother repaints.
Right, exactly, are Universe. Some of the Spy Changer repaints are Universe, but get thrown in with RID as well. So, but there is a distinct line that you can make if you wish to. I would make that line. Like, I would never go after the desert one, but the urban one is one I've been searching for ages. I've missed out on a couple of listings of that. You've then got the Sideways and Exa set that we mentioned earlier, which were they were in G2, these two, but really, really bizarre. Sort of repaints, and they look pretty cool. I've actually got those on the way. Finally decided to pick them up, but they were the laser cycles in Generation 2, and they were going to be re-released as Soundwave and Jazz, I think it was originally, but they found new life in RID, and that one I think is really bizarre, but kind of fun to see them again. And that's kind of cool. And then I think you get into the really weird stuff, which, as I mentioned earlier, but Cryotech for me is just so strange, just seeing a blue Transmetal 2 Megatron. But I love that it's become a real staple repaint of every future Transmetal 2 Megatron toy as well. So to the point now where I have, I have the originals in both colours. I have the 2 different third-party versions of both colours as well. And that's another one that my boy is slightly obsessed about, all the dragons and everything. So
you talking about Cryotech reminds me of a certain feeling in the fandom at the time when that and Axa and Sideways came out. I remember I was mostly in vintage circles, and there was a part of the fandom that was really excited about those RID repaints coming out. And I remember a bunch of us, myself included, in the more vintage collecting circles were just bemused by the excitement for these. It was so far removed from what Transformers looked like for us. It was just a case of, what is today's big deal? Oh, it's Sideways and Axa. Look how excited they're getting over that. Like, what's happening? It was one of those moments where it felt like parts of the community were really divided from each other and almost disconnected in what they were enthusiastic about. It's like there was definitely not a community-wide enthusiasm for some of the stuff that was coming out in RID. It was just like totally ignorable. But time changes all things, and
it does.
It just put me in mind of that. Crytek was a really good example of that.
Yeah. Well, probably Crytek more in a funny way, because actually, at least with Sideways and Exa, they were G2 molds, so you're talking about those toys being very closely released after G1. I mean, the original toys came in 1995, I think. So, it could have almost been G1 toys, really, although they've got a very G2 vibe to them. Whereas Crytek is quite clearly a Beast Wars.
But again, this was also a time when G1 to most vintage collectors kind of ended around 1986 and 7.
True.
It's a lot more of a recent thing that a majority of G1 collectors look at the entire whole right up to 1992 and embrace it as a whole thing there. It used to be a lot more segmented than that for certain types of enthusiasts.
That's a fair point. So, yeah, Crytek I think is beautiful. That was actually one of the toys that I first experienced as the repaint. It wasn't until much more recently that I got an actual Transmetal 2 Megatron. So I loved that blue version for years. Really, really loved it. So
I wonder do you think Liam ever got that Stormjet he was after?
Yeah, I was going to ask.
I was waiting for that one to come up.
Yeah.
No, it's still on my list of things to someday buy that I have not bought.
So what do you see in that one? Fun. What's the desire from that one from?
Because it's a really nice use of the Jetfire deco on something weird and just strange. It's got this, because it's that Beast Machines. I can't remember his name.
Jetstorm.
that guy. Yeah, is
That one.
Yeah, and that was always one of the toys I liked from Beast Machines. So I was seeing it in that deco. It's
a great
just
toy.
a cool looking space fighter jet.
It's a great toy. I really like it. I really like the mold. I had the Beast Machines version back in the day. Yeah, there was a couple of them in RID actually, that mold, because there was also G-Axis as well, which is the orange one, which I have now. I don't have the Stormjet, but the G-Axis one is really nice. Obviously named after the Generation 2 character, rather weirdly.
The orange is why the Generations one is orange.
Right. Okay. Yeah, it probably is. Yeah, that makes sense. But yeah, they really were just kind of throwing everything at it at this point. So there was also actually, I forgot to mention, there was Bruticus, bizarrely alongside, Ruination and everything. There was a Bruticus toy, but it was an ex Beast Machines design. That's a really weird thing, Maz. You're not going to get on with that, I don't think. I'm just telling you now. I can't see you finding a love for that. It's a weird old thing. It's like a 3-headed dog.
Fantastic. Sounds like one of Megatron's modes.
Does it turn to a hand?
Doesn't turn into a hand. Turns into a robot. It's got several faces.
What's it called?
Bruticus. RID 2001. Bruticus.
What is that?
Right, there you go.
I remember when this came out. I recognize the card.
Yeah, you're not going to be into it, mate. Honestly, there's no way that you will like that toy.
Wow. Okay.
That might push the envelope for you.
I don't know where the top or the bottom is on that thing. What am I looking at? It's
hard to know.
It's like a futuristic car mode of Megatron, but it's got legs. Oh no, there are the other legs. It's got back legs.
It's got multiple legs. Yeah, it does have legs. But then the robot mode faces and everything is just a strange old thing.
This is not a toy I will buy in the near future.
I would love it if you do one day. I would absolutely love to be a fly on the wall as you're unpacking it, and you're just like...
They really did chuck everything at this toy line, didn't they?
Yeah, that's what I mean. So this was an unreleased... I mean, this is... Beast Machines got pretty weird in some cases, and this was never released in Beast Machines. This was like a toy that they determined didn't need to be released, and then they chucked it in RID. They were like, well, here we go. It's greatest hits. And Bruticus. But no, I kind of... I don't know. It's an ugly
this is
thing.
greatest hits, then this is a B-side, mate.
Right, yeah. It's an ugly old thing, I'm not going to lie. It's a toy that is... Is it fun? Do I like it? I don't know, man. I don't really know what to think of it. Do you know what I mean? I've never done any pictures of it.
Let's get it for Liam.
Yeah. Birthday present.
Yeah, I'd love it. Crazy, weird, 3-headed Ghostbusters dog.
It's an entirely unique Transformer. Let's put it that way. Do you know what I mean? And you've got to kind of admire it for that. If nothing else. But yeah, that's the thing. And then really kind of the rest of the line is all made up of odds and sods. It's like Air Attack Optimus Primal, which is another Beast Machines toy that was never released at the time. But, has since been encored as well, funnily enough. So actually we said there was only one encore toy, but technically this counts as well. That's a really weird one because it's so clearly Beast Machines Optimus Primal. It's even painted like the show model. It's the most cartoon accurate version of Beast Machines Optimus Primal that there is, and yet it was released in RID. So just a weird one, totally.
Do you know, I think it's things like this that really made car robots more attractive for me as a line to collect.
I get
because
that.
I think I wouldn't have been able to stop at the show characters. I would have started to bleed into repaints of show characters because I like the molds and I just wanted different colors. But then at some point I would have had to ignore a whole bunch of the line. And I am a completist at heart. And I think it would have been hard for me to enthusiastically go after these. Like I've got Car Robots Gigatron and I probably will get the 3 Beast Wars Stooges, but I'll like them as novelties, knowing that I don't have an entire range of toys I wouldn't naturally go for to buy. So I like them as part of Car Robots, and just it's a much more contained line, and I seem to be more willing to chase a weird store exclusive in a baggie that costs a lot than to go after figures like that because they came under the RID banner. I find it hard to align them with what I think of when I think of Car Robots and Robots in Disguise.
I think that's entirely fair.
Probably a lot of show influence and bias there.
They do push them. I mean, clearly stuff like Air Attack Optimus Primal is not really an RID toy. Like it's not even that they've repainted it. To be honest, even stuff like Megatron, Megabolt, and things like that, they're not. They're just Beast Machines designs. They're just stuff that they had lying around, and they were like, "Hey, whack this out," and people bought it and liked it because they liked Beast Machines, maybe, or whatever.
Yeah.
So,
but you could argue spy changes are the same thing.
True.
Like the unused mold spy changes, things like Daytonus and stuff like that. I guess is.
Well, that's the thing. I was going to say there are loads of great little spy changer molds.
That I want.
Yeah, the Daytonus mold is super cool, and I do think with spy changes. I mean, with spy changes, you could just do that with RID. You could just say, "I'll pick and choose the bits that I like," and
I think ultimately it comes down to the fact that I like robots that turn into cars.
Yeah, that's fine. That's all right. We all got our
might
have something to do with it.
That's the running joke with this line that I love. That bit at the end of what was it in not the that bit in Suicide Squad where they go, "So that's it, huh? We're some kind of Suicide Squad," and that's how I always kind of imagine this line of like, "Wow, that's it, huh? We're some kind of car robots." It's just got that ring to it. It's so funny. But yeah, you can just pick and choose a little bit. Do you know what I mean? That's absolutely fine. I mean, maybe it helps that some of those weird ones like Air Attack Optimus Primal and whatever are store exclusives themselves. That was a Toys R Us exclusive. So you could just kind of, I don't know, maybe your brain can work some logic in there somehow.
So it wouldn't have to work very hard.
Yeah, just don't buy the toys you don't want.
Yeah, don't buy toys you don't want.
Don't buy toys you don't want. It's that simple.
That is the takeaway here.
Yeah, definitely. You don't have to get the whole line. So just get the stuff that looks cool.
Transform!
So, I want to do our usual quickfire questions at the end of a big featured toy line episode. So, Liam, if you were going to recommend one toy from Car Robots or Robots in Disguise to get someone interested in the line, which one would you recommend?
Probably Prowl. I think Optimus is the obvious one, but it feels like a slightly later toy to get. But I'd probably go with one of the Car Brothers, probably Prowl, because it's just
solid choice.
Classic Transformers and meets new Transformers. Everything about it is wonderful like that.
What about you, Sixo?
I was going to say maybe Sideburn, actually, just because I feel like if you can get past Sideburn and you're still on board, you're going to be fine. It's like it is a step in terms of transformation, maybe. Although not so much with later toys, whatever. But I feel like if you can embrace Sideburn and you're all in, you're going to be fine with the rest.
It's got an elegance to it.
Definitely.
It's not tear your hair out, limbs in every direction, sort of what's happened. How do I get away from this? It's elegant.
Yeah,
but second on the list would be Prowl, or Sideburn. Those Car Brothers are so central to this line. I wouldn't even say Superfire Convoy because I have a feeling that a certain type of person might be turned off by that, by the mass parts forming and that sort of super robot vibe. But then they'd absolutely love everything else the line has to offer.
The Car Brothers fit very snugly into a lot of places, don't they? Because they're small, but they're very familiar to current toys. Deluxe, like you said earlier, they've got that vibe.
It's absolutely welcome to the year 2000 for Transformers, is what they say, those Car Brothers.
They're a perfect crossover, because when you look at Prowl, for example, it just looks like a classic Transformer. And then when you turn it into a robot, it's a completely new type of Transformer. So if you can... If you do that, and then you get, like Sixo said, you get on board there, then you get to Superfire Convoy.
And on top of that, they are very prominent show characters, which just has the added cool for making you love them.
And bloody fun.
Ultra Magnus! I'm in trouble! I'll be right there!
Okay, well, ultimately, I think we're gonna leave it there with the RID and Car Robots chatter. I mean, we have been quite thorough, I think it's fair to say. I mean, this is the longest episode that we've done to date, but we really did want to kind of get in under the skin of this toy line because all three of us love it so much and we think it deserves that attention. And, we've been promising it since the very beginning. So hopefully it didn't disappoint in that regard. So just on the way out, it's worth mentioning, of course, that you can get, or there will be, that Spy Changer minisode on our Patreon very soon. So we're going to be looking forward to that. We're going to go into a lot more detail on Spy Changers, the Hasbro versions, all the various Takara versions as well, and some of the exclusives, which you can hear more about me fondling my bags and things like that. So that should be maybe some exclusive content there. It's pretty exciting. But talking to Patreon, Maz, we have a bit of another question, I think, don't we?
Yes, and I thought this would be a good one to answer in the 1 year episode. So Stephen Perkins has asked, hey guys, I have a question that can be answered during a podcast episode. It might not make it to air, but can we have a little backstop on why Maz doesn't like the Omnibots? I'm not sure if I missed it from something from older episodes or if this hatred of the bots is from outside the pod, but a little explanation would be appreciated. So,
yeah. Well,
no,
I can answer this one.
Okay, let's hear from these two.
Well, the truth is that you just hate Omnibots, isn't it? It's been that you hate the toys.
Savage.
It's just outright savagery, yeah.
All right, and now the real story is that we were going to talk about the Omnibots in the 1984 episode, but what happened was back then it was Sixo editing the episodes, but I would listen through the episodes and make notes on everything that we talked about and give pointers as to where we should cut and where put bumpers in. And the Omnibot chatter didn't really link to anything before it or after it, so it was good content on its own, but it just started to veer into waffle territory, and we were kind of mindful of staying really snappy. So so I decided that we could leave that for a dedicated time somewhere down the road, maybe even 1985, or maybe like a mail away exclusive episode. So I just thought we're not going to lose too much. But these two were so offended by what they felt was top drawer content. I don't know if they've listened back to it ever since.
You just said it was good content.
Yeah, it
was good content in terms of it was a good topic, but it wasn't snappy and it was like kind of like waffle. But we eventually did an Omnibot minisode, which is tremendous. Inspired a whole range of Triple Takeover merch. I love the Omnibots. I absolutely love them. I love the Diaclone versions. I like the G1 versions, and I would love to see Generations versions. And I love the cars they're based on. Ferrari 512 BB for Overdrive is one of my all-time favorite cars. So
I remember sending you a message when you sent that note saying, cut this time stamp to this time stamp or whatever. And I just remember sending you a message saying, sorry, you want to trim the Omnibots? I was like incredulous about it. Like, what?
Yeah. Oh man, did they go on about it for ages. I mean, it's still coming up. It's been a year. That was episode 3.
There was a second instance, though, wasn't there? Not long after where we briefly talked about them, and you eliminated it again.
No. It was before that. It was before. You're saying it was episode 3, but you'd already cut them out of episode 1.
It wasn't
the gimmicks episode.
Yeah, we talked about them in that as well, and you trimmed it. Yeah. That was why I was so like,
maybe
what?
That's what it is. Yeah, no, I've forgotten that. Okay, so it was a repeat offense thing. Obviously,
it became a recurring thing that it was like, oh, there's some Omnibot chatter, delete, and it was that was why it wasn't just the one time. I think the
main takeaway here is that these lads can really waffle, and sometimes they just need to be reined in. And this is one of those occasions. So that's our Patreon question, and that is a perk of Patreon. You can ask questions; we'll answer them on the show. And a number of our recent episodes have actually been topics that came from episode polls. So that's quite a lot of direction of content that you can have access to if you sign up to the Triple Takeover Patreon.
It's worth saying, actually, the Spy Changes was a Patreon request as well, wasn't it? That was one of our Sixo's butlers that actually commissioned that as a mini-sode. So that's why we're doing it there, because we do like to look after those people.
And speaking of butlers, they get their shout out every episode. So a massive thank you to Nick, Dean Watts, Danny Roberts, Chris C17, Andy Preston, Brian Fox, Chris, Billy Ho, Spiderfather, Adam Shoemaker, Zachary Blader, Matt, Stephen Perkins, Bad Saturday, Justin Massaro, Dave Dalrymple, Absurd, Giocasa, Yusufa, John Percliffe, Saras, Troy F, Anthony Cars, Alec Meir, Captain R.A., Phil G, Jonathan Fossil, Howard, Jack Pelletier, Alicia Lee, aka Alicia Tron, Sam Highland, Stuart Webb, Amar, Laserbeak, Puma the Hunter, Mike S, Vegemite Mike, Peter Hamilton, Andrew Bentley, Shenry, and Chris Norris. Thank you guys. What a list.
It's like Blur just turned up.
Oh, is that why you're upset?
I've got Patreons coming out of the walls. Patreons coming out of the
walls. Well done. Oh, well done. Brilliant.
And all the time I just saved by reading out quickly is up in smoke.
I thought maybe you just read it out like that so that we wouldn't keep putting silly music over it when you did it.
Well, now I think I can't avoid
now
it,
I'm going
right?
to find something. Yeah.
Was it Benny Hill or something? Who knows?
Oh, well, I was going to give you a bit of Vince DiCola, but maybe I can give you the Benny Hill theme tune if you want.
Please don't.
Yeah, well, it is just worth mentioning that if you do want all of that and more, then you can look us up then on patreon.com/Triple Takeover. Maz, where can they find you?
I am at TFsquareone on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter.
Liam?
I am at Toybox Soapbox on all of those same things.
And I am at Sixo TF on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, some other stuff. Can't remember. So we also have a couple of sponsors just to thank before we head on out. So we've got obviously tfsource.com for all your Transformers and third-party needs, and gearforgeeks.co.uk. Still got that amazing, I just checked actually, still that amazing priced RID Magnus is up there. So Liam, if you're not going for it, man, maybe it'll still be up there by the time the episode goes live. Who's to say?
I'm all about our listeners.
Right, okay, sure. If only had a landfill, eh? And there's also a couple of primes up there. Do check those out. Looks really, really good. So that about does it for the RID chatter, meaning that we're officially closing the book on our first year of podcasting. Woohoo!
Woohoo!
It's been full of intense highs, surprising discoveries, nostalgic interludes, and an alarming number of unplanned eBay visits. Once again, we've loved each and every minute of it, and we hope that you have too. So here's to year 2 and beyond. Till all are one.
But if you know how to feel your bag, then you know there are good things in your future.
There we go. Halfway twist. There we go. Round there.
Twist, twist, flip, twist, twist, flip, click, twist, clip, twist, flip.
It's so big. It's ridiculous.
It's massive. It's expensive.
Just like you really want to chew them. They look sweet.
Woof.
Wars.